Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is April the 15th. It's tax day. If you haven't done that already, you'll be shocked to learn that the IRS is open. They're still accepting your money, and you still owe them money, even though we were going to have tariffs and we were not going to have an IRS. I had that on really good authority from a guy who ran for president. Then he got elected to president, and then he installed the tariff part of it. But then there was still an IRS. So that's unusual to find out. What other promises are not being held up? It turns out the weaponization of the federal government is going to continue one way or another, and so that's really fun to learn. We're looking for a clean FISA renewal. That's the same FISA that was used to spy on Donald Trump's campaign that we've heard endless Russia talk about, the same sort of tool that Barack Obama expanded in 2016 as he was leaving office and Donald Trump was coming into power, that gave the NSA the ability to look into all the things that you guys might have in your email. It's the same thing that I pushed back and told members of Congress was being abused. I thought was probably illegal and that it probably couldn't be used legally by our federal intelligence services. And we were going to go ahead and push for a clean renewal. Also, pretty exciting stuff. There is a blockade in the Strait of Trump, the Strait of Epstein, the Strait of Hormuz. You can call it the Hormuz Strait. You can call it the Strait of Hormuz. You can't call it the Trump Strait. There's a blockade there. And also, China is very excited that the strait is open. Confusing messages coming from the President of the United States. I have absolutely no idea what he's saying, but I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to play some clips from his interview that just happened. And then you guys tell me maybe in the comments or in the chat, what the heck is this guy talking about? Because it's very confusing. And about halfway into the show, or about half an hour in, we're going to talk to Joe Biggs, who had a major break in his, attempt to stay alive in this country, which is that his sentence was commuted previously on January 20th of 2025. The conviction is being requested to be vacated by the DOJ and Judge Jeanine Pirro running the United States Attorney's Office in D.C. So that's exciting. I'm going to hear it from him specifically. He may have tied one on last night in celebration. So that's really exciting. If you guys saw a little shadow of him on the thumbnail, Joe Biggs is going to come talk to us and tell us what happened, what the fight looked like, what we think is going on in the background, and then what it means for him in the future. We're going to have Stuart Rhodes join me as well in the very near future. I talked to him yesterday as well. So congrats to the Proud Boys and to the Oath Keepers who've had their convictions at least requested to be vacated by the federal government. All right, before we get into today's program, let's talk about Cove Pure water. Seems like a real easy thing. How about fluoride? I actually was going to run a story yesterday about fluoride. There's a long-term study that says fluoride does not affect IQ. And I read the study and I was like, oh boy, that seems super sketchy. So for whatever it's worth, the government's been medicating your water for over 80 years, not because you asked for it, not because you voted for it, not because you said, hey, this is what I require. They just decided you need it. It may not be a decision that you're on board with. You may think that there may be some issues there. I'm sure it's a combination of that and all the garbage we get into our food. So that's why we filter water here. My wife is neurotic about chemicals and pharmaceuticals and PFAs. She's constantly worried about microplastics, all these kind of things. There's over 209 million Americans that are on a fluorinated water system, whether they like it or not. In 2024, a federal judge ruled that adding fluoride to the water poses, we'll quote here directly from the court case, a quote unquote unreasonable risk to neurological health, regardless of what the study I just saw shows. It's not a fringe study. It's a federal court ordering the EPA to act. In January 2025, study published by JAMA, Journal of American, I think, Medical something, Pediatrics. I don't know what it is. They decided that there is a possible link between fluoride exposure and children's IQ, and that the higher the exposure, the lower the IQ, in contrast to a study that I saw the government put out the other day. Plenty of states moving on that, but you can do something about it yourself if you guys want to make sure that you have clean, clear, pure water using the ClearWave technology, the reverse osmosis in the Cove Pure unit. That's what we use. That's what my kids drink out of. It's sitting right on the counter. It takes no plumbing. It's very easy to use, and you can filter out all this stuff, lead and pharmaceuticals and heavy metals and fluoride. Check it out right now. They're doing a deal where there's an extra $50 off our normal discount. So you're going to get $250 off at covepure.com/KYLE, covepure.com/KYLE. Those are all the letters, covepure.com/Kyle. Link in the show description, as you will usually find. $250 off right now from the normal price using our promo code, using that link. Find them below and support our sponsors. If you guys are not getting clear water, it probably tastes gross. It's nice to have water that just tastes like water, which is almost like nothing. All right, let's do today's program. Jumping in right now. I legitimately don't know what our president is doing. I legitimately am starting to move into the space of like, we're just throwing darts at a board to find out what he says. And it could be anything, and it could mean anything. Here is the lead story that comes out of NBC News. The United States military has turned back 6 ships in the first 24 hours of the Iranian port blockade. I listened to a litigious mind, a retired United States Army guy. He's an attorney now, and he works in the law of armed conflicts. And I learned that the word blockade doesn't just mean blockade. There's a military definition of it. There is a legal definition of it when it comes to international law and what it means and what it doesn't mean. And apparently what it means is that you are doing things for a very specific reason in a very specific way, that there are certain ships that have to be let through if they're from non-combatants. There are certain activities you can take when it comes to hostiles or people who are friendlies towards hostiles. So that could include things like the Chinese and so on. And apparently the United States military has now turned away the first 6 ships. But the weird thing is that Donald Trump posted something that seems like a complete contrast to that this morning, about an hour ago. So I will read you that, and then we'll see if we think those are in conflict. I guess if China is considered to be a non-combatant country, they're certainly friendly to the Iranians. So I don't know how this all works out, but let's just read the story. In the first 24 hours of the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, American warships have issued warnings to 6 vessels, prompting them to turn around, says a U.S. official on Tuesday. That was yesterday. No shots were fired in the encounters, the official said, and U.S. personnel did not board any vessels before they reversed course. 5 of the ships were carrying oil. According to this official, the contents of the 6th vessel were not immediately clear. 2 of the oil-carrying ships turned back in the first 2 hours after the blockade went into effect on Monday morning. Donald Trump announced the blockade on Sunday after negotiations with Iran failed to produce an agreement that ended the war, which is weird because he's more or less said that the war is over, and he's said it about 25 different ways and 25 different times. The United States is now using more than 100 U.S. fighter and surveillance aircraft, as well as more than a dozen ships to enforce the blockade. The official said the U.S. is stopping vessels as they enter the Gulf of Oman after they go through the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. has had more than a dozen ships in the Gulf of Oman. We currently have a dozen ships there, and it doesn't make sense to move them to the Persian Gulf, where they risk being in more danger. So said the official. Okay. So there's that. And then there's this, which is from True Social. About an hour ago, Donald Trump posted the following. And I'm serious. Like, I don't know what this is. China is very happy that I'm permanently opening the Strait of Hormuz. I'm doing it for them also, and for the world. This situation will never happen again. They have agreed not to send weapons to Iran. President Xi will give me a big, fat, hug when I get there in a few weeks. We're working together smartly and very well. Several exclamation points. Does that beat fighting? 3 question marks. Capital, but remember, we're very good at fighting, if we have to, dash, far better than anyone else, 3 exclamation points. President DJT. We're very good at fighting. It's going to give me a big, fat, hug. So weird. This doesn't look healthy to me. I don't know what it means, but I do have some fun clips. So let's see what kind of things he said. By the way, JD Vance was interviewed yesterday on stage with Turning Point USA. And I've got a clip of him essentially saying that just because you're not happy about what's going on in the Middle East doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to vote harder. You should vote your way out of it. The answer to you being disappointed with someone violating all the campaign promises is just do more. Why are you not doing more on your end? You could just get excited about it and pretend like it's all good. Here is Donald Trump talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Some of you guys call it the Strait of something else. There's a lot of things you can call it. There's some things you can't. This is a very important answer. This is about as coherent as his tweet.
Italy gets a lot of oil from the Strait. You can call it the Strait of Hormuz or the Hormuz Strait. I said, which is better? They said, either is okay, but you can call it either one. The only thing you can't call it is the Trump Strait. They don't like that idea. By the way, speaking of that, I did a thing that people like very much, except for Mexico. I took the Gulf of Mexico, and we now call it the Gulf of America. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. Who is he talking to? I think that was Maria Bartiromo on Fox Business. Oh, wait, he actually said, I will be talking to Maria Bartiromo on Fox Business right there. 9 hours ago, he said that. And then he went and they released. Why are we talking about the name of the thing? What does that have to do with the Gulf of America rename, which was obviously a troll, and it's not really that interesting? Are we still fighting a war? Did we win? Is it over? I don't know. I don't think you're going to get any sanity out of this. Here's Donald Trump saying, we won. It's basically over. We could pull out now and it would take them 20 years for them to rebuild their country. But don't worry about that because we're not going to pull out now because we're going to destroy it even more. We're going to 30 and 40 year destroy it, I guess.
I had to divert because if I didn't do that, right now you would have Iran with a nuclear weapon. And if they had a nuclear weapon, you would be calling everybody over there, sir. And you don't want to do that.
Well, you keep saying was. Is this war over?
Is it?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly. I had to divert.
I'm really, really uncomfortable with what I just heard. I hope you are too, because I don't know what the heck that means. Who's running this thing? Okay, this goes to the broader question I think a lot of people have. Is the president of the United States actually the president? Are they actually in charge of things? Or does it matter who's in the office? Is it just going to run? Maybe that's why I'm most concerned about this FISA renewal, because it kind of indicates to me that the guy in the office, the face that you see, the promises that you voted for, they may or may not have anything to do. And it's leaning more and more towards may not have anything to do with it. You voted for borders being closed and a huge number of people being deported. And apparently some people stepped up and said, you know what? We actually need those people that you wanted to deport. In fact, we need millions of them. They are doing farm work for cheap. They are working in our hospitality environment and we're your friends and we need our businesses to run. So you can't do that. And so they're like, well, guess we can't do that. There's a reason why I put the thumbnail picture up like this. The thumbnail has the cancer man from the X-Files standing behind Donald Trump giving a speech. And that feels more and more true today. And it certainly feels true when we have a Trump administration that is advising that we should give a full, clean FISA renewal. FISA is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It is the tool that allows the NSA to grab all of your things in signal intelligence collection. And then because of an update to the Executive Order 12333, which happened in, I think, November, or I think it happened in either September or October of 2016, before Donald Trump was elected, they thought Hillary was going in. They allowed the FBI to get access to that information directly, and for the first time. So when I joined the FBI and I showed up to my office in December of 2016, that was after that had passed. And when I showed up in a counterintelligence squad, the first thing that I experienced, what I learned to be not normal, but it was the only experience I ever had, was that we had direct access to raw FISA collection from Americans and from overseas accounts. And the way that FISA works is there's two versions of it that are the collectibles. And I just want people to understand what they are. The first one is the traditional FISA. It involves a thing called the Woods file, which is a statement of facts. It's supposed to be kind of like a show your math and make sure that you're doing things on the up and up. and you articulate that we need to have this thing. We nominate this target, whoever it may be. It could be a nation state actor. It could be an individual working on behalf of a nation state. It could be for a foreign terrorist organization or a member of a foreign terrorist organization, whatever. And you take that information and you nominate them for FISA collections. And then you have to justify it with a Woods file. And the Woods file is like every single factual statement that you make must be justified with information and how you got it and where it came from and how do you know that it's true and so on. And you submit all that into the court, and it goes to this court called the FISC, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. And that's a rotating panel of judges in the DC area who evaluate the claims that you make. And there's no counterclaims because nobody knows. This is a secret. This is done in the closed doors, government only. It's what's called ex parte. So the only party is the government. And so the Woods file is supposed to be the check and the balance so that you don't make it up. You submit the Woods file, you submit your FISA request, the judge looks at it, judge panel, and then they determine yay or nay, we have enough or you don't have enough. And generally speaking, they have enough. Government tends to favor the government when it comes to spying. And the reason that they favor it is because the idea is that it's not going to bother anybody. It's no danger. It's not going into a criminal investigation. It's going to a national security investigation, which means there's no allegations of wrongdoing or criminal actions. And one of the big things that I started telling people when I started coming out and speaking, and I think that it was a mind-blowing change for some people, and they've apparently forgotten it since, quote unquote, our guys are in charge right now, and we're opening the Strait of Hormuz and we're getting hugs from the Chinese president. The thing that I wanted people to understand is there's this fundamental difference. This is going all the way back to the beginning of this podcast, the first interviews I ever did. Our government runs two types of investigations from the FBI when it comes to the reason and the way that they go about it. The reason for a criminal investigation is there was a criminal act. It's linear. Okay. It's a straight line. The act takes place. We investigate the act. We find out who did the act, and then we charge them with the crime. And then they're either pleading out, they are contesting it and going to court. And at that court, they either get acquitted or they get convicted. And that's how that plays out. And there can be some appeals afterwards. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about with Joe Biggs. That was his thing, an allegation of criminal act, conviction, and now a vacated conviction, it sounds like. So all that's linear. Then there's the other thing that goes on, which is not supposed to actually have any kind of contact with the criminal world. And that's an intelligence investigation. It's a circle. I find a target. I want to know who they're talking to. I want to know what they're doing. I want to know why they're doing it. I want to know what other things they know. All right. And so we're going around and around in a circle, and we're just gathering information. And as we gather information, we identify other people that our target knows. And so then we open up on them. And we do circles on them, and we find out what kind of money they have and where their money goes. And we find out what they're spending, their time talking to, and who are they talking to, and where are they traveling to, and so on and so forth. What are their business operations? Do they have any connections? Is there anything here that is interesting? The crazy thing is you can open FISAs on people in the national security realm with no allegation or information that there's a criminal wrongdoing or a criminal action happening. But let's say you happen to come across one, and you found it in a way that doesn't require a search warrant because you've gone through with the national security tools. You're using something called a national security letter, which is a subpoena. It's a secret subpoena. It's where we send something over to a company and we say, hey, because of national security, we need all these records. And it's serious. Just trust us. Here's one page from the boss at an FBI office. So they send over all the records. You look through it and you're like, oh, well, I don't think this guy's actually a spy. I think they might be doing some money laundering and some mortgage fraud. Well, when you see that, you can't unsee it. And the people who see it are FBI agents who are criminal investigators. So do they unknow that when they decide to go out there and open up a criminal case, finding out something that they shouldn't have been able to find out in the first place because they had no business being there when it comes to a criminal investigation, but they're also dual-hatted as intelligence investigators? This is where the problem comes in. This is where FISA is really dangerous to American liberty, in my opinion. We managed to make it through most of the Cold War without FISA when we faced theoretically the biggest geopolitical threat of foreign intelligence and our need to do foreign intelligence surveillance. And we somehow managed to make it through. Now, suddenly, you've got agents who are sitting in an office in Washington, D.C., like I did, sitting in a skiff, looking directly into, let's say, an email or the files that are your bank records, and they're just looking for whatever they find. And once they find it, well, then they can't unfind it. And if it looks like it's criminal activity, then they can make the allegation or information. Now, they could do it a couple of different ways. They could just straight up say, we saw it in FISA, and so we're going to open this case. That's actually not allowed. They're not allowed to use that information. So what they'll do is they'll go to somebody else that's in your email files, and they'll knock on the door of one of your friends who's involved in your thing, and they'll go, hey, we know you're involved in this thing. Don't ask us how we know. We're the government. And you got two choices here. You can get jammed up for it too, or you can tell us what you know about your friend who's doing this thing. You know, I like to use the example of, let's say they were investigating you for contacts and doing business in China, and they thought you were a foreign agent of China, but they find out that somewhere in your emails, it says that there's a machine gun that's not licensed and it hasn't been a tax stamp paid. And so they don't have a Form 1 or a registry or a form, whatever it is. I think it's a Form 1 registering the machine gun with the ATF. So you don't have your National Firearms Act paperwork. I don't own any machine guns, so I can't tell you. So they find out that you got this illegal machine gun sitting in a safe. Well, they just go to one of your friends who shot the machine gun with you because there's pictures in your email or whatever it is of you guys at the range together. And they go, hey, I know that Seraphin has this machine gun, and I know that you know, and I need you to tell me about it. And then when they do, then they predicate the case on source information and they protect the source. So now they don't have to tell you that they found it out using some sort of secret surveillance on you. Does that sound good? How about the idea that what I reported to Congress as one of my whistleblower activities is this thing called FISA 702. And FISA 702 is way easier than the traditional FISA, which takes a lot of work. It has the Woods file. I told you, they got to document it. It's litigious. A 702, you can open up in a morning. You just make the allegation that somebody is an agent of a foreign power and that they're overseas and that they're doing work on behalf of that foreign power from overseas. That's it. I would like to nominate this person who I believe to be a Russian spy who is currently in Ukraine, Russia, Germany, not America. And here's why we believe that they are. Here's some background on what the Russian apparatus is. Here's the FSB. Here's GRU, whatever it may be. This is their org structure. This is how they operate. This is why we believe that this person is there. That's good enough. Now we nominate. So now we start collecting on their emails or their phones or whatever. That's FISA 702. That's done in a morning. And this afternoon, I can start looking into it. Now, here's the crazy thing. If I find that fill in the blank Russian spy that I've alleged is talking to somebody like you, now I'm going to read the emails that you guys have in between each other. And maybe I have to nominate you for 702 coverage in a one hop. And then maybe whoever you're talking to in another hop. And by the way, that's what they did to the Trump administration when they were campaigning to be president in 2016. They had the FBI look at raw data directly out of the email. I have to explain it to you guys. It's like looking at your email inbox, except it's on my FBI computer when I did it. And when I read something, it doesn't show up red on your end. And I can move things around and I can hold on to them and I can print them out and I can add them and index them into PDFs and put them into evidentiary files and so on and so forth. I can just look at I can see your spam. I can see what sort of stuff you're getting. Oh, you're going to get advertisements from a cruise. Oh, you're getting advertisements from this money company. Oh, you're getting advertisements from cell phone, internet service, whatever. And all that stuff tells me things about you. And they're just gathering this stuff up. So what do we do with a country that says we have a president in that's worried about spying, that got elected for, hold on, let's go back and look at this real quickly because I'm pretty sure it's on the list. There it is right there, number 9. It's a top 10 issue, de-weaponize, end the weaponization of the federal government against the American people. And when you end the weaponization of the federal government against the American people, what you should be doing is you should be not encouraging people to have a clean FISA renewal. Because FISA is antithetical to the American liberty. And it's very simple here too. Look at number 7, defend the Constitution. How about the Bill of Rights? Do you not have a 4th Amendment right to not have your government spy on you? I think you should. Here's Donald Trump's tweet, which I'm going to read at least some of it. And it's really, really hard to read on the screen. So just bear with me a second, folks. But this is what I'm talking about. And this is why I get very worried when people say that we've won. Donald Trump said this out the other day. Quote, I'm working very hard with our great speaker, Mike Smithers Johnson, along with Chairman Jim Jordan and Chairman Rick Crawford to get a clean extension of FISA 702 through the House of Representatives this week. I'm asking Republicans to unify, to vote together on the test vote to bring a clean bill to the floor. We need to stick together when this bill comes to the Rules Committee today and keep it clean. Then he goes on to tell you why you shouldn't actually like this. I was a victim of the worst and most illegal abuse of FISA in our nation's history. Our radical left lunatics who lied to the FISA court in an attempt to spy on my 2016 presidential campaign in their attempt to rig the election in favor of crooked Hillary Clinton. Their use of this instrument in the 2020 presidential election was even worse. And when the dirty cop James Comey, who, by the way, is free and clear and hasn't had to suffer any fate, failed head of the FBI, went after me. He was using FISA Title I, the domestic collection, not FISA 702, the foreign collection, which, by the way, can be used domestically, which needs to be extended today. And then he goes on and on and on talking about all the things. He talks about the reasons that there was the Russia hope, the witch hunt that the Democrats engaged in. Military desperately needs FISA 702. Okay, well, I know that your FBI is using the 702. This seems insane to me. And that's why the cancer man is standing behind Donald Trump in today's thumbnail. Because I listened to Russell Brand say it, and I think it may be true. There's a real chance that it doesn't matter who's in the office, that the state is going to do what the state does, deep state, administrative state, the permanent bureaucracy, permanent Washington, call it whatever the hell you want. That's what looks like is going on from my end. Because I cannot fathom finding out that a tool was used against me. Guys, the FBI came after me. It came after Joe Biggs, who's going to be speaking to us in just a moment. Came after a lot of people. If you were a person who was sensible and you're like, hey, the FBI was used to attack you and your family, do you think that the FBI should continue as it exists right now? And you're like, yeah, 100%. Like, we totally need we need an FBI. It's super important. We need to have the same FBI. We should do nothing to it. Just leave it as it is. It's doing a great job. It just was a momentary problem where it tried to kill me and everybody I know. Then I think you're a crazy person. Or you're not in charge at all, and somebody else is pulling your strings. That might be the case. So, with that being my thought, this is J.D. Vance urging young voters to just vote their way out of this stuff, and then we're going to move and pivot the second half here, and we're going to talk about a win, because we definitely need it, and I want to hear what Joe's story is. He's going to be joining us momentarily, so we're going to hit a moving target on this program. As I self-produce. Listen to J.D. Vance tell you how it works.
Issues like for example, I recognize that a lot of young voters don't love the policy that we have in the Middle East. Okay, I understand that. I also know that we've secured the border. We've lowered housing prices now for 8 months in a row, and there's going to be more to come beyond that. We've made America energy dominant, which has lowered electricity costs and things like that. We've made it so that we have the lowest murder rate in 127 years. I'm not saying you have to agree with me on every issue. I'm not saying you have to agree with me on every issue. What I'm saying is don't get disengaged because you disagree with the administration on one topic. Get more involved. Make your voice heard even more. That's how we ultimately take the country back. It's not by you. You know, if you get 5 things you want and 1 thing you don't want, I see way too many people, especially in sort of the online conservative, Twitter sphere, who say, there's no point. No. Because, or let me give you another example, the SAVE Act, okay? A lot of people want the SAVE Act. I want the SAVE Act. I've been fighting for the SAVE Act literally since day one of the administration. And I've seen a lot of people saying, what the hell's the point of voting for these guys if, you've got 3 Republicans joining with the Democrats to prevent the SAVE Act from passing, or I guess 4 Republicans. And here's my response to that. Yes, it is annoying to me that there are only 45 or 46 Republicans who will fight politically to get the SAVE Act passed. But you know what? 10 years ago, that number was 35. So the answer to frustration is engagement. Don't give up on this process. Get more involved in this process and demand more from people like me. That's how we take our country back. I just think it's important to say that.
Of course I was muted. My bad. I'm sorry about that, guys. Anyway, I had a really good rant right there just telling you I don't understand what that means. Apparently, you need to vote harder. You need to vote harder. You need to vote for another decade. If you can do so for just 10 more years, then maybe we can get the right number of people into Congress who can pass the things so that the elections can be secure so that your vote will actually count. I don't know how that works. Maybe you do. Put it in the comments below. Help me understand how a non-secure election is going to result in positive results in a decade. And if you were reading my lips, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Okay, so folks, if you're watching over on Rumble, give us a like. This is a one-man show. I had to mute it so I could bring Joe on, make sure we did a little sound check in the background. That's why I was still muted. Like us over on YouTube, follow the channel over there, subscribe in either place. We appreciate that. You may hear an ad from the folks over at Spotify, and that will happen maybe right now. We'll leave a little blank. We appreciate them monetizing this platform. I'm going to bring on Mr. Joe Biggs, who's having are you having a triumphant day today, sir?
Yeah, this has probably been one of the greatest days ever. It's been a long time coming, 5 years of hell. I heard you talking about the FISA courts and Trump complaining about how they used him on me. Like, yeah, look, dude, you're a billionaire still. You've had people say mean things about you, but you never had to go to freaking prison, dude. He's one hell of a complainer. I can say that. But I am appreciative to the fact that the people at the DOJ are, like Judge Janine and Todd Blanch, people who you didn't think would help you are the ones who actually stamped off on my charges being dropped and my case being dismissed. So,
Okay, so that's the bottom line up front is that there was an unopposed motion by the government yesterday. I think I'm correct on that. Am I saying it right?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the story from CBS News. I read a couple other people on the political left. They seem less enthusiastic about this situation. So it says DOJ moved to dismiss the January 6 convictions against former Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, including seditious conspiracy charges. Justice Department asked the federal court to vacate the J6 convictions against a dozen members of the right-wing Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, most of whom were convicted of seditious conspiracy, aiming to wipe away some of the final Capitol riot charges that were still standing. For those who did not know, it sounds like 14. Is it right? Is it 14 or was it 12 that did not get a pardon?
13.
13 did not get a pardon. Yeah, I always see these numbers are kind of funky. People say, remember the last 12, the 13. They're saying 14 people here had their sentences commuted.
What's her name? Your good friend, the J6 reporter hero. She was able to write a letter.
Julie Kelly? How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, she was able to write a letter to Trump and got one of the guys a pardon. I was like, wow, if you could do that for one guy, why don't you help the rest of us? But you never want to spend your capital if you don't need to. Julie Kelly, she's my favorite. Okay, so that's the story. That's the bottom line up front. When does this motion get executed? When will the court rule on it? Do you have an instinct? I'm not sure. I just knew like 2 days ago, Harmeet Dillon, she reached out to Enrique, told us something big was coming down the pipe, to expect it the next day. Yesterday, I'm riding my motorcycle. I get home and look at my phone. I've had like 6 missed calls from people. And I call Enrique and I go, what's going on? He's like, have you heard what happened? And I go, no. He goes, the DOJ is signing off by close of business today, ordering them to drop the charges and vacate the convictions and everything. And it's like, he said, this is better than a pardon. And I fell to my knees, because I never thought I was going to get my military benefits back again. It seemed like, just an uphill battle that was just never going to come to an end. And, praise God that something good has come out of all of this. It sucks that we had to go through it. But in this, in this trial and tribulation that we've had to go through, we've been able to help uncover a lot of bad stuff that's been happening in the FBI. We've got Nicole Miller, who was in the background listening to our legal confidential calls when we were told that we would have, full privacy with our attorneys while we were going through trial. And they were listening to our strategy and able to move and bend their stuff. I mean, we even saw their leaked emails where they flipped out and saw that we were actually going to go to trial, and they panicked because they go, we don't have anything on them. So it wasn't until after they found out that we were actually going to go to trial that they were able to flip Jeremy Bertino and scare him with some illegal guns that he had at his home, tell him they were going to give him life in prison, and then work him over the next 5 to 6 months to flip him and to coach him on how to say things. They knowingly conspired to commit perjury. They did so with malicious intent. I mean, it was all messed up. I mean, there's nothing good going on at the FBI right now.
I tend to agree with that, certainly at least at the political level of where they're making these prosecutions. So let's zoom back out. You've been on my program. I think this is the 3rd time. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's true. I spoke to you after you guys were sentenced, and we did a jail call of all things, and people can go back and listen to that. And that was one of the harder conversations I had. I had it with all 5 of you guys. And so I think we did 10 or 15 minutes each, and I just tried to let people hear the story before you got put behind bars, which is rotten. So after that, we talked after you got out as Donald Trump came in, because you got your sentence commuted on January 20th, correct?
Yeah. Mine was commuted, not pardoned.
Commuted, not pardoned. Most people basically said J6 is done. Everybody got a pardon. They didn't understand it. I've constantly been trying to point out that one of the major failures is for some reason they carved off a couple of guys who always looked like they were victims of the deep state, sort of whatever the hell that was going on. Whatever the machinations of January 6th, they still held 12 people, 13 people to account for it.
Yeah. They decided that we were just going to just pick these guys out of a basket and just screw them over, because originally when I was in jail that day, they came to me, the warden goes, look, you're going to be getting a pardon. And then it changed this is like around 10:30, 11 in the morning. And by late afternoon, they were like, all right, around 8 o'clock, you'll get a call to leave. So they pull me out of my cell. Finally, everybody in the cell block's clapping. They're all glad that I'm actually going to go home. And I get taken up to the warden's office for, departure to get, closed out of there. And the warden comes back in and he goes, you're not getting a pardon, man. He goes, they changed it. You're getting commuted now. So originally they'd already had me down for a pardon. And then someone got into Trump's ear and had him change it. And, that's what we've been trying to figure out. It's been this whole guessing game, like who's behind the scenes, who's getting his ear, who's telling them to make these calls, because there's somebody doing it in a lot of instances. And they're definitely not looking out for what he said he's about.
There were people who legitimately were involved in physical violence, fought cops. Jake Lang comes to mind. I'm sure there were others as well that were like the actual bad guys on that day. And tell me if you agree with this, because this is my kind of running suspicion. I don't think the pardons were necessary for everyone because they earned them per se. There are certainly some people that were bad actors. They deserve whatever time they were going to get. But because of the improper conduct of the government, the pardons that went out to those people, the guys that maybe actually earned the sentences they were going to get or earned the right to be behind bars until it was decided, because Jake never went to trial, it was more of a rebuke against the bad behavior of the government than it was about the good behavior of certain bad actors. And then somehow you guys who didn't do violence got left in the lurch. Does that sit right with you?
No. I mean, there's been a lot of frustrating things about that day. Initially we were told in the weeks leading up after Trump won the election that the pardons were going to come down and they were going to be merit-based. As long as you didn't commit acts of violence, you would get a pardon. Some people might get commuted if they were bad, but then it was like everyone that committed violence got a pardon, and the guys who only, walked in an open door and didn't hit anybody or steal anything or break anything got screwed the most. And it was just because he happened to be part of the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers. So they decided to pick us out and, demonize us. But, it just never made sense, because from the get-go, they started off with, hey, we're going to do it this way. And just the same day as the pardons came out and the commutations, last minute, they just kind of flipped it. And the people who weren't violent got screwed. And the ones who were out there like attacking people and fighting and acting like, a bunch of crazies, they were let go and given back their freedom. So it was, it's been, you get tired of trying to make sense of it. So I gave up on that a long time ago. Right. But, I won't lie. The last, the first month or so when I got home, I was really confused by all that, because I'm sitting there racking my brain, like, what could I have done? And, you look at the footage and you spend all that time in trial and it's like nothing ever came to mind. Like the entire time I was in trial, I was naive enough at the beginning to think I could actually win because I had the truth on my side. And then once you get put through this ringer for the first time, you actually get to see how the justice system really works. And there's no justice at all. This is about the government having a narrative that they're going to spin and then them getting the judge on board. And I say that because originally the judge denied the footage that they use to try to get me to get thrown in jail where I touch a fence and it goes down. Initially.
Yeah, I'm requesting. I just realized you're on your the microphone that's coming in is not the mic in front of you. Give it a chocolate. Yep. Now it is.
Okay, that's weird how it did that. Okay.
Yeah, it'll sound way cleaner. I just realized that I was like, I feel like there's more of a room echo than there needs to be. It was coming out of the Macintosh thing. No big deal. This is what happens when we produce things on the fly.
Yeah. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So the judge uses this, or the prosecution gives the judge this video of me touching a fence and then he goes down. Well, what they don't show you is over to my right, Ray Epps is racking the fence and rips it down, and it goes down like dominoes down both left and right. I just happen to be the left. So what they did is they, deceptively edited this video, and it looks like I'm moving my hands back and the fence goes down. Mm-hmm. So the judge sees it the first time. Judge Kelly goes, "This is ridiculous. That's not him breaking the fence." And our hearing's over that day. Our first hearing is over about my detention, to whether or not to put me in jail, because right now at that time I'm on home confinement. And then a week goes by and the prosecution asks for another detention hearing. They bring the exact same video back, and this time Judge Kelly goes, "That was an act of terrorism." And I sit here and I look over at my friends that are sitting in the room with me, and I go, wow. And that's when I realized this was over. Like they got to him, because how can you go and say this isn't anything and berate the prosecution as this is a joke? If you ever bring this kind of footage around me again, I'm just going to drop this whole case, and then the exact same video is used again a week later, and he goes, "You're a terrorist," and they throw me in jail, So that's how I knew that all they needed was to get DC on board. Then they had to convince the judge. And then once they got a jury, obviously those are a bunch of leftist lunatics that live in DC. They're going to say whatever the prosecution tells them to. If the prosecution told them I killed Oprah Winfrey, they would have convicted me of murder right then and there for that. It wouldn't matter what they said. They could have said that I had fireballs shoot out of my butt and I burnt one of the police officers. The jurors would have sat there and shook their head and gone, "Yes, I agree," because that's just how bad it is there.
So for people who don't remember, this was one of the only times in any criminal trial that I've ever heard of where people were fighting to get on the jury so they could enact revenge against people through their vote as a juror. And that never happens. Like, everybody wants to get off jury duty, except that one.
I mean, we had the longest jury selection in history. We had the longest trial in DC history. The foreman for the jurors was a trans rights activist, and everybody knows the Proud Boys. We stand outside these places where they have these, cross-dressers and trannies come in to try to teach children things like that, and we protest it. So they knew that was the guy they needed to pick. They had all the people that we sat there at the juror selection said, "We hope they get buried under the jail." There was not one person that was like, I could be impartial. They were like, "Well, I'll try." And the Judge Kelly goes, "Well, that's all you can do." She's like, "I hate them. I hope they all burn in hell, but I'll try." So it's like, Americans need to wake up. What's happening to people like us, what's happened to us, it's only going to get worse, and people need to understand that, there needs to be a speaking tour to let us go around and educate people on what it's like, why you should get a paid lawyer or not, versus, a court appointed, whether you should just go pro se and learn how to use AI, but there's a lot of bad stuff going on out there. I mean, they use FISA stuff on us. I mean, we were wanted by Interpol and the FBI for just literally walking around at an event we were asked to be at. Enrique and I were supposed to speak. We had Capitol Police that were going to escort us there. That's why they brought in Shane Lamont and said that we were, conspiring with him to help overthrow the government. I mean, it was all just one big BS narrative.
Will you give people a quick summary of your previous employment history, your government service, military service, etc.? And then also if you had any run-ins with the law up until January 6, 2021. I just want to do a memory refresh for myself and the audience.
Yeah, so I joined the Army right after 9/11. Right before that, my brother David joined the Marines. And he got shot in Fallujah on a convoy, and it pissed me off. So I said, you know what, I'm going to finally join. So I join up, but I go into the Army because I want to piss him off and my dad. They were both Marines. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted my own story to tell. I didn't want to sit around the dinner table and have the exact same story to tell, but just years apart, After that, I get out. Actually, let me backtrack. While I've been in Afghanistan, my last deployment to Afghanistan, I run into a reporter named Michael Hastings. His car blew up sometime years later. He wrote the book, The Runaway General, about General McChrystal. He was the NATO commanding general in Afghanistan, and it got him fired. Obama, he had said Obama was a horrible president and shitty commander, and it got him fired. So you had McChrystal and his guys.
Hastings died in like a weird car accident later, did he not?
Yes, he sent me an email that morning saying, hey, don't be surprised if the FBI comes in and kicks in your door because you know what I'm working on. And he wrote an email to me and BuzzFeed Ben, the guy that used to run BuzzFeed. I don't even know if that's still even a thing anymore. And I got this weird email. And then that night I get a call from his family saying Michael's dead. His car blew up. It was 3 a.m. He was driving through LA and his steering wheel exploded. And they go, no, this is just a normal crash. And I go, well, it's not a normal crash for your steering wheel to explode where the driver's face is going to be. That seems pretty targeted. And then also look at this email I got saying, hey, I'm worried. I'm going underground. Don't be surprised if the FBI comes to your house asking about what it is I'm working on. And he was working on stories about John Brennan and a lot of the ties he had to a lot of really bad stuff. And, you know, in my heart of hearts, I believe the government killed him and put out a hit on him. And he was scared in the weeks leading up to that, checking under his car daily. And they spun this whole thing about how he was all messed up on meth. And I go, okay, let's just say he was on meth. Still, his car blew up at the steering wheel at 3 a.m. driving down the road because he was scared trying to get away from something. I go, even if there was meth involved, that doesn't, I've seen people smoke meth. I don't see steering wheels explode all over the place. So
really, really strange that came up. In probably the last 2 weeks, a buddy of mine who's an FBI agent was talking to me about this exact story. Believes exactly what you do, that maybe some JSOC operators decided to go back and strike one out for the big guy, because McChrystal had a pretty strong JSOC connection and was well thought of over there for a lot of the stuff that he allowed them to get into. And, you know, good fair play overseas, losing your job and losing a guy that you like as a commander. There's no question in my mind that our JSOC operators and the support activities that go along with it have the ability to hack vehicles and do a bunch of other kind of really wild stuff. So it was my buddy's instinct, and I don't. It sounds like yours as well, that some part of our government, regardless of whether it was JSOC, whether it was domestic or whatever else, maybe ran that vehicle off the road. I think my buddy said that when they did the analytics on the computer, I can't remember what you call it now, but the computer that runs all the engine components, that like the steering was pegged to one direction that didn't make sense, and that the accelerator was pegged to 100% open throttle, and so just like a full speed run into like an overpass. Well,
or something like that. You don't even have to be like an expert hacker or anything to do this stuff. I mean, those progressive things that they give you, they send you to your house that you can plug in under your dashboard.
Sure.
If you hack that, you could use that to control a car like a remote control toy. You know, there's a lot of scary things, and that's why it's always kind of good to buy vehicles that predate, 2017 or 2007, before a lot of this
chat is reminding
stuff.
me that it's the ECU, the electronic computer unit or whatever it is.
Yeah, my Tundra was 07, my truck 07, my motorcycle I have is an 07 and down. You know, I don't like to get anything after that because of that reason, and people never believe in me, but I know. I mean, I knew Michael very well. I knew him enough to where his family invited me to the funeral up into Vermont, that I spoke to his wife. You know, I knew them intimately. I knew his best friends, you know, and he's not the kind of guy that makes up stories. I mean, he was a very courageous guy. I mean, he was in combat beside me holding the camera, and we're being attacked by 100 Taliban, and there's 15 of us. And he's sitting there smiling, looking at me with the same grin that I got, you know, like this guy was just an all around badass war correspondent, and he's not someone that got scared easily. So when I heard him, I believed him, and I knew that there was something going on. So back to your original question about me, this happens. Me and Michael become friends. He writes that story, writes a bunch of different books, The Operators, which they turn into a show that Brad Pitt's in. And he dies. Right after that, I get that email and start doing a media tour. I go on CNN, Fox, everywhere. And it's this interview I do with Megyn Kelly. She goes, "You sound like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist." And a guy named Alex Jones in Austin, Texas sees it. And I get a call the next day from his producer, or, you know, his main guy, Rob Dew. And Rob Dew goes, hey, is this Joe Biggs, the guy that was on the news last night talking about Michael Hastings? I go, yeah. He goes, hey, my boss wants to talk to you. And he just hands me the phone in here. Hey, is this Mr. Biggs? And I go, yeah. He goes, hey, this is Alex Jones. Look, love what you got to say. Want you to come on the show. And I go, who's this? And he goes, what? And then it hangs up on me. I didn't know who he was, and he hung up on me. So Rob calls me back and goes, hey,
solid Alex Jones impression. By the way, I think everybody who's ever worked in and around the Alex Jones network space, if you've ever been into InfoWars, you end up with an Alex Jones impression. True or false?
Yeah. Yeah, that's we all have got one. Yeah, but I think mine's probably one of the best.
It's pretty good. I'm not trying to suck your dick, Joe, but it's probably one of the best impressions I've ever heard of Alex Jones.
It's completely great. So Rob calls me and he goes, hey, I got this video, and he sends me this video, and it's Piers Morgan and Alex Jones debating each other. And he goes, if you like this video, call me back and let's do an interview. And I listened to the thing. I'm in the back of my buddy's car. We're going to like a UFC fight in South Carolina somewhere. And I'm just start cracking up, and everybody pulls over the driver pulls over the vehicle, and we all look back. And I was like, look at this guy. He's insane. He's like jumping up in this dude's face. He's like, 1776. Ah!
Yeah, it's going to commence on you. If you try to come after our cons, we're going to. Yeah, that thing. That was a great interview.
Yeah. I was like, man, I said, for anything, this would just be funny just to go. I mean, so I go on the show. He has me on 2 or 3 times, invites me down to Austin. And at the end of the trip, he's like, what do you think about, being a reporter? And I go, what? And he's like, I don't know anything about that. I was like, I know how to shoot guns and shit like that. He's like, no. I was like, he's like, you don't need to go to school for that. He goes, school will just make you stupid. It'll corrupt you. He goes, all you got to do is I'll have a guy with a camera. You'll stand in front of him with a microphone and you tell him what you see. And I go, well, that sounds pretty easy. He goes, yeah. He goes, you don't even need to go to school for that. He goes, just tell the truth. And I go,
wait a minute. This is the same Alex Jones that Dan Bongino said lies about stuff on camera all the time?
Yeah. Bongino, oh my God. What a spiraling out of control douchebag that is. But no, yeah, he's like this novel idea, right? He's like, just tell the truth. I'm going to point a camera at you. I'm going to send you to cool places where there are things going on, and just tell me what you see so the audience can see it. And I go, okay. I was like, I live in Florida. He goes, I'll pay you this, move to Austin. And 2 months later, I was in Austin, Texas. I was driving, and as I'm in my U-Haul coming into like was it Pflugerville or the outskirts of Austin right there?
Sure.
The Bundy Ranch standoff's happening with David Knight's there and all that, the original one in Nevada at the actual Bundy Ranch thing. And I'm listening to that. He's like, all right, you're going to pay attention to what's going on, take notes, how they do this, and then I'm going to send you somewhere. And then the Michael Brown shooting happens, and my first job is the freaking Ferguson riots. And I get in my zone. I find what God was meant for me to do, like, because I'm already like used to be in combat. So they throw me into this like all black neighborhood. There's Molotov cocktails flying, people fighting and shooting going on, riot police, MRAPs everywhere. And I'm like, I'm in my element. Let's go.
Here, ready?
I'm sitting there with the camera, and I'm filming everything by myself, running around through the riots, ducking and dodging stuff. And I loved it. I had a blast. And I told Alex after that, I was like, thank you. I was like, this is awesome.
Here, and we're going to send you straight to Ferguson. This is what it looks like. We're going to cut to Joe Biggs.
Breaking exclusive. Breaking exclusive. Breaking exclusive.
Oh gosh.
Cut to Joe Biggs standing there unarmed in an angry black neighborhood that is rioting.
Yeah, I've got like eggs on my face and pepper spray and all this stuff. I'm coughing, snot dripping out of my nose.
Living the dream though.
Yeah, it was funny, Yeah, and that was a time. I remember, was it Tim Cass, that kid? I would make fun of him during the riots. I was like, why are you wearing that freaking beanie, you loser? I was like, you're bald. Let it go. Like, stop. Like, you're not fooling anybody. It's hot out here, and you're wearing a beanie.
It is an interesting choice.
It's a little suspect.
Yeah. He could have gone with a backwards baseball cap, but then you might show like a little.
Yeah. I don't know. It was funny, though, man. I never expected my life to go that way. 1 minute I'm fighting the Taliban and BSP-7 on the Pakistan border. The next minute I'm running through Ferguson, Missouri, and then my family started calling me Forrest Gump because they would just be watching the news and you would see me in the background somewhere. I was like, one day I'm in Ferguson, Missouri. The next minute I'm in San Bernardino where that ISIS attack happens. And then they blink their eyes and I'm at the Bataclan Theater in Paris where the ISIS attacks happen there like the next day. And they're like, what the hell? My uncle Randy started calling me Forrest Gump because in the movie, you see him in all these like pivotal things in history popping up everywhere in the background. So that started to be my nickname in the family.
How long did you do that, Joe?
For like 4 years. And then I had my daughter. And then shortly thereafter that, my mother's husband died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then about 2 weeks later, I get a call from her sister saying my mom has breast cancer. So I picked up and left Austin and chose to, be here for my family. I enjoyed being on camera. I enjoy that. I get a rush out of going to places. I like to travel, and it's kind of cool to be part of history, to be in these places in time that will forever be remembered and be like, I was there. I feel like I have a pretty cool story to tell one day. And I just enjoyed that blessing and opportunity. God is great, and he's put me in a lot of cool positions to do a lot of great things. And I'm excited to see what he's got in store for me now. I mean, God didn't get me through multiple years in combat, almost dying, Purple Hearts, shrapnel in my head, my knee ripped out, shrapnel on my right foot, prison for 4 years without, getting killed or having to kill anybody. And then let out of prison early and then now having all the charges dropped. So, it's time to pray up and be humble and seek God's wisdom and hope that, I do the right thing and for him.
How many total years of military service?
10
years. And then did you get medically retired or did you get,
Yeah.
So medical retirement, do you mind saying kind of roughly what that was based on? Was that combination of fact? I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. So you have to go through what's called like a med board.
Yep.
And when you go through that medical examination, they determine based on you do sleep study. I have severe sleep apnea. So that's way up there. I have traumatic brain injury, TBI. The PTSD at the beginning, I had a higher rating, but that's dropped down because I've, worked on that over the years. But my injuries on my knee, my foot, the back of my head, I lose consciousness sometimes. Like I'll not even remember where I'm at for a minute. So I got a rating of 100%. So 100%, I get that in back pay now because I'm having all my charges vacated. If I would have got a pardon, I would not have gotten. Yeah.
Yep. So, medical retirement, med board, out of Army, 10 years. You were with InfoWars for a little while, run around doing wild guy stuff. You have a disability rating from the VA. So you're getting the payment from that. What was your retirement rank?
I was 100%. I was a staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant. Okay. So left Army, retired as staff sergeant. I think somebody was saying like, where's Staff Sergeant Biggs? I saw that the other day on X a bunch of times because they were looking for your account. So I that's what I had in my head as well. Did some work in media. Fine. Traveled around, got to see all kinds of wild stuff. And then what about your criminal record? Any criminal record before January 6, 2021?
Nope. Nothing at all. I mean,
criminal record.
I've had like speed tickets and things like that, but nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, I could get a job anywhere. I mean, I maintain a security clearance up until just recently when this all happened. So,
yep. And then you get the J6 experience. How many total years were you behind bars?
4 years, 2 years in solitary confinement. I was sentenced to 17. The prosecution wanted me to have 36 years, and the judge was kind enough to only give me 17.
That was really thoughtful.
Yeah, it was loving.
And so sentenced to 17, served 4, got out, and as you got out, again, you said commuted, not pardoned. So the money that you were previously making, that you were getting paid for both disability and military retirement, gone?
Yeah, so they actually stopped that years ago. They stopped that at the mere...
on the indictment?
Yes. So I wouldn't even convict you yet. Just the charge of that coming up and saying seditious conspiracy, the VA had a trial without me. They would not allow me to go. They wouldn't allow my lawyer to attend. And they stripped my benefits and my pay away. And then I was told that I would never get that back pay because in their mind, the sentence would never be vacated. And that was actually the greatest thing that happened for me, was to have this vacated. I mean, that's what I really needed. And like I said, God's good. But a pardon would have just with the pardon, I would have had to call the secretary of the VA, and he would start the pay the day he had the proof, the paperwork said that I got the pardon.
So they could turn it back on, basically.
Yeah, they would turn it back on from that day, and the next pay period I would get paid from that day to then. But now I'm owed 4 years.
So, Joe, the other question that I had was about the medical benefits were gone as well. So
yes.
you were getting, it's not just that. So anybody who's ever had VA experience, like I don't tend to get a lot of things treated at the VA, but if you have ongoing medical treatment required, and I think the last time we spoke, first of all, I recognize that you were clearly, struggling with the adjustment coming back out. I imagine that was really, really difficult. And then it's like, well, can I go talk to somebody? Can I get a therapist that's available through, the VA benefits? And the answer was basically no, piss off. You're not one of us anymore, even though you have bled for the country, even though you have a military retirement. It's all wiped away, even though you're no longer in prison. That's what I got from you. That seemed like that was the biggest injustice of all of them, even when you got out, that it just continued on.
Yeah, it's even worse. I mean, I don't know if you remember the rest of the story, though, but when I showed up, I knew that they had taken the benefits, but I figured, hey, me being a vet, I still have my veterans card. I brought my Purple Heart, all my awards to show, like, hey, this is me, this is who I am. And the system shut down. And the guy looks at me and goes, this has never happened before. His boss walks into the office, pulls him aside, and then the police walk in and tell me that I have to leave. I'm escorted off the premises by police. And here I am, a veteran, trying to get help, dealing with PTSD, from combat and now from prison, being in solitary for 2 years, and, people trying to poison and kill you, the police trying to, set you up so you never get out. It messes with your head. And I just wanted to get help, and it broke my heart. The VA literally said, screw you. And the VA police escorted me off the premise. And it's like, I felt like as I was being dragged out of there, just part of my heart just falling and hitting the ground, like drip, drip. Like to know that the country I had literally bled for, watched my friends die for, just kicked me out like that. Like I was a piece of trash, and this was all brought on by some BS narrative that, Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and all these other douchebags put together. And it's just, it's messed up. I never thought I'd see something like that.
That's a gentle way of saying it. Let me break and just remind people, if you're watching over on YouTube, I'd appreciate if you guys gave us a like. Same thing on Rumble. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. That's always helpful. If you're watching on X, join us on one of the places. We got a pretty boisterous live chat right now on both sides of the aisle. And you may hear an ad from the folks at Spotify if you're listening to audio platform. So thank you for doing that. Joe, what was the effect of going through those experiences? Your experience at the VA, you said your heart dropped, that it kind of breaks knowing that you're not going to be helped. Now that even that you're out, you're still not really free. And I'm sure it was difficult making a living and, turning a dollar. We've had conversations offline about that. Can you kind of summarize your thoughts on justice system, American federal government, and maybe the turn over the last couple of years and the way that you look at what this country represents and maybe the message it gives to people versus what your experience is now?
Well, the justice system there's definitely no justice involved. You have these high hopes. You hear people get on TV and they go, America's the best because of this, because of our justice system. We live in the matrix. I mean, the fact that everybody thinks this is the greatest country in the world, that's an illusion. That's a lie they tell you. When you get put through the ringer, actually put through the ringer, not like Donald Trump put through the ringer, where it's just like they say mean things about you, but where they actually say mean things about you. They actually deplatform you, debank you. That's what the justice system did. They went to the banks and forced them to push me out. They went to jobs to try to get them to fire me. They go to the media to do these smear campaigns, and they try to twist narratives and create narratives based off of little bits of information that they piece together the way that they see fit to spin a narrative to make you look bad. And then they get you thrown in jail, and then they really amp up that campaign against you because now you can't defend yourself. Mm-hmm. You're in jail. There's no way to talk. There's no way to see what they have to say. So I've got 4 years that I've got to go through of media and the things they've said to file suit. because that's what they do to us. The justice system needs a lot of work. And, it's amazing. We see Pam Bondi leave and immediately we get our lives back. There's a lot of bad actors in the DOJ, and that's something I want to be able to talk to people about. People need to understand that everything that you do on your phone is watched, it's listened to. You can never delete it. Every conversation you have is listened to. When they will strip data off your information, they'll strip data off your phone, and then they'll put it into a program, the Justice Department, and spin it around and take out things that are exculpatory, things that make you look innocent. Then they'll push it together in this format and make them exhibits in trial, knowing that they're false, and the judge knows that they're false, and they'll sign off on it and say that it's true and use it to screw you over. They have everything that you see, you film, you talk about in your home is all listened to, and people don't believe it sometimes. But when you're sitting there and you see the United States of America versus Joseph Biggs, and then they bring out your devices, there's things that you never thought could ever be gotten. They can get. They listen to it through other devices. Everything is stored and recorded, and they're always going to have somebody there that's going to show and try to prove it that you're this horrible person. So, it's scary what they can do. The justice system is really messed up.
If you had heard some of the things that you're saying right now, let's say 10 years ago, pre-January 6th, post-military, you're just running around a guy in the world, you hear the story, some guy says, oh, the government came after me, they did all these things, they presented this stuff. If you can imagine your mindset back then, hearing these folks, would you have been like, that's a conspiracy theory guy, that's a person who was done wrong, or that's a person who may have some things that are working against him, but he probably deserved it? Do you know where you would have fallen in that camp if you had heard those things 10 years ago?
Yeah, but I remember Petraeus was doing a thing where they were talking about we're spying on you through your refrigerator. This was like 15 years ago. And I was like, I remember when I first heard that, I was like, that's ridiculous. My refrigerator? Like, really? Like, where are you going to get like me scratching myself in the morning, trying to go grab for a jug of milk or something? It's like, what are you going to get? But literally, they have all these devices now. They have all these back doors, and they put these microphones and these listening devices in it. And when you think about all the smart devices you have now, people have smart homes. They have the Ring camera up front. So now they have you visually coming in every day. They know your patterns. They know when you come in and out, what you're carrying, what hand you carry stuff in. So they can literally send in people to come after you to just disarm you because they already know which hand you're always going to carry stuff in. They can see how you walk around your house every day and where you're going to be because most people live in patterns. And you don't understand the information you are just giving up to the federal government and to other agencies, and they are watching you and they're looking at your habits, and they know, like, if they want to set you up, they already know what you do. They know what you like to buy. They know what your preferences are when it comes to sexuality or anything like that, because they see what you're watching. They know what you're talking about. There's a camera that goes in your bathroom or a listening device, and all they can do is just follow you around and piece it all together and store it. And they've got files on you. I can tell you, they have files on you that you wouldn't believe. 60-year-old grandma at home right now who's, sewing or doing something like that, making a sweater right now, who go, I've never done nothing wrong in my life. Guess what? They're watching you every day, grandma, and they're putting together a profile. And one day, if they don't like you or they need you for something, they already know what your habits are and how to get you and take you down. That's just how scary it is. And that's the truth and reality of it. And I didn't really fully believe it until I sat there in that courtroom and saw just how shady it is and the links that they'll go to and the amount of data they have. They have warehouses around the country that just store data that you are creating and giving to them freely. It should frighten you.
Yeah, it's horrible. I'm just chewing on all that. And I think a lot of that rings true with my experience. Again, we're talking about FISA this morning and who's really running things. It makes me think that at the end of the day, I don't know that you can vote your way out of this. Do you have an instinct that, like, if people just vote hard enough, like JD Vance said, that in 10 years everything will be okay? We'll go from having 35 senators that are on board to 45, and maybe we'll get 52. We could get someone to have a voting act that passes 10 years from now.
The only thing that's going to happen is society changing, culture changing. And right now we have, I'm 42, my age and under, maybe 45 and down. we kind of understand like who the real bad guys are. We're kind of waiting on right now. There's this cultural change, this shit that's going to happen when the boomers die off and we get to step up to the plate when half these people that are in the House and the Senate are gone because they're too old. They can't be there anymore. And new people. And that's why we want to encourage younger people to get involved in politics. You're not going to vote your way out. No, but we just have to be patient because, you know, my generation and under, we're starting to see who the real bad guys are. We're starting to understand that AIPAC's not really the greatest, you know, lobbying system there is. That there's a lot of different entities out there from different countries that are really pushing the narrative of what our government's doing, and really how we vote doesn't matter. Actually, it has to do with which country's giving our politicians the most and what they're going to do. They don't care what their constituents have to say. It's who's putting the money in their pocket. Is it Qatar? Is it somebody? You know, who knows? But they're going whichever way the wind blows, and that money is. And that's the truth of the matter. You're not going to vote your way out of this. You know, you're just going to have to educate, read, pay attention to what's going on, look at things with an open mind. Stop looking at sources of news that you know are one-sided. Watch both sides so you can start to disseminate between the propaganda and see what's real and not real. Read books that will expand your understanding of media control and propaganda. So when you do watch the news, you can kind of break it down and see what's real and what's not. Education and reading is going to be the only way to change this country, because right now it seems like they don't teach history anymore. And when you don't teach your history, what is it? You're doomed to repeat it. You know, so we have a lot of uneducated people out there that can vote, and we have some of the dumbest voters in the world. They're so just true. Voting.
Yeah, I'm anti universal suffrage. I think less voters is way better. Joe, I'm fixated on something because you said did you say you're 42 years old?
Yeah. I've had white hair since I was like 17, 18. I know. I look like Santa.
Well, your beard was darker. Your beard was darker a couple years ago, was it not?
Well, there's a little bit of black in here. I keep it down just because it looks weird. And then it's weird. Back here, I have like at the back of my mohawk, it's black, jet black, and it's back.
I'm saying that because I'm 44.
Yeah.
And I've had a hard couple years for most regular people. Nothing compared to what you've gone through. And my beard's starting to pick up a little bit of gray. I feel like I've got pictures. I think I've got pictures of you. I guess that's an older picture. It's still gray. When did the beard go gray?
Probably like 21.
21 years old? Or 2021?
Yeah, so 21, like 21 years old. So when I was 18, I was already gray like this in my head.
Okay.
And then the beard started coming in over the years. I would say about 7 years ago was when it really started kind of going full white. Okay. And now it's like
it gives you like a certain amount of gravitas, even for being younger than I am. Like people walk in, they're like, "This dude's seen some things." Whatever this guy's.
Oh
about.
Yeah. Well, then I'm pulling up on a Harley too, you know, and I've got a shirt that says "F the left" on. And most people are just kind of like,
"This guy's going hard." This guy might be 60 and still going like real aggressively. That's a pretty aggro dude. Okay, you dropped in there and. I actually don't know what to think on this, so I'm very interested in your analysis. Pam Bondi was out maybe 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You had this change happen in the last 24 hours. What do you think is going on there? What happened at DOJ? What was the roadblock? And then maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the back and forth, because this motion from the government seems like it was an answer to some other things, like some ongoing litigation. You want to kind of lead people to the story of how the hell this happened and maybe what the original case was and how it progressed and what the change points were.
So I think I'm still trying to figure this out. I can't tell if a successful PSYOP was run on Todd Blanch, you know, because here it is. This one guy I was told was a Democrat who hated us, and he was the main reason that my pardon was being blocked. Well, maybe he was blocking the pardon because they had something better down the pipeline, which was the total vindication and dropping all this stuff. So we were led to believe that Todd Blanch was this horrible person. And then you see Pam Bondi leave. They make him acting attorney general. And the next thing you know, we actually start getting some traction on our case. You know, the civil cases start to move along. We're suing the DOJ, the FBI, you know, certain individuals, Nicole Miller and soon to be Jocelyn Ballantyne for $200 million. And nothing's going on. And as soon as Bondi's out, we're starting to get all this traction. And we get a new judge. She goes, "Your case has merit. The DOJ really messed up and overstepped. Like, we don't see any reason this should have happened." And then Heartbeat Dillon calls us and goes, "Hey, something's about to come down the pipeline." And then we get the email yesterday saying, hey, you know, your whole thing's going to be vacated. And then Heartmeat Dylan tells us that Todd Blanch was the one to think that he was behind a lot of this, that helping us to get vindicated. And so it's like this whole time I've been so confused. Here we are, you know, and this shows you how successful these PSYOP campaigns are, is they get you involved in hating someone and you don't even know why. Next thing you know, you're on X or Facebook saying, screw this guy, get him out. And then something happens and you go, well, hold on. Like, why did I even say that in the first place? And it's because they know how to get you to be angry. It's like that 1984 book when they're just sitting out there screaming at the picture of the guy and they don't know why. And they're just cussing this guy out. They're just told that they have to hate him. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, no, who's the they do we think that's pushing against Todd Blanch? Because I've heard it. I mean, I've heard Alex Jones say it. He's like, Todd Blanch is obviously the problem. Todd Blanch is the one that's stopping the weaponized working group. But I've had a very similar experience to you, at least in the last 24 hours. I have a similar experience because the people that I met with for my lawsuit against the FBI worked directly for Todd Blanch. And they were really reasonable people, and they were really decent-hearted people from what I could tell. And the stories they had sounded like they've gone through weaponized government as well. So I'm hearing the people that, generally speaking, have a pretty good handle on things. And then I'm meeting the person. In fact, one of the guys that we met with, who was Todd Blanch's, I don't know what his exact title is. He's like a deputy assistant attorney general, something like that. But he was a guy that, you know, he's a fairly high-level guy, one or two notches below the DAG. And when he shook my hand, we had this meeting up in Dallas. We shake hands. And he said, I'm really glad I met you. People said I wouldn't like you in person, but I do like you. And I'm glad we got to meet. And I was like, who told you we wouldn't get along or something like that? And he's like, oh, I don't want to say. And I said, that's fine. But isn't it interesting? There's people that are setting up this motivational thing. They're telling people inside the DOJ, and they're certainly telling us on the outside. Todd Blanch is the problem. I've heard it a million times from people that, generally speaking, tend to align with. And obviously you did too. We have this strange little change. Are they setting him up for a win because we need Todd Blanch to be in there so they can pull off a bigger screw you? Or is DOJ trying to like maybe gather back some credibility, going, hey, we kind of lost some messaging ground with Bondi. Now we got another guy's taking the place, and let's give him some wins. What's your instinct?
I don't know. Like I said, people need to understand and think about this when we're talking. You and I are talking about our experience now with this. Like, really start to understand how these PSYOP campaigns are, and really look at when you get on X and you're going, I can't stand this person. Really, before you say it, think, do I actually have reason to do that? Or am I a victim of a successful PSYOP campaign and I'm just being a puppet and playing in to their whole thing? You know, so it's really interesting to see that unfold and to hear what you're saying as well. So that's what I'm being led to believe right there, is that we were told that this guy was going to be bad because I guess if he did get into a position of power like he is now, he was going to do possibly the right thing. So they wanted him to seem like, because he was a Democrat and had, you know, a past like that we should automatically just hate him and assume that if he gets in that he's going to do the wrong thing and further screw us along. So we kept hearing all this information like, he's the one blocking you. He's the one blocking you. And Alex heard me saying that. And he probably, you know, thinking that I'm going to know and kind of went along with that. That's fine. You know, that's understandable because I'm usually pretty good about stuff like that. Yep. But I was a victim of it, and it can happen to all of us. I mean, you can't be that smart to we can't all be Jedi, you know, masters and, you know, use the force and block away every PSYOP that comes at us because, you know, I mean, we live in one every day. I mean, you just have to disseminate which one you're going to pick and fight that day.
I've been really cautious about coming out aggressively because all the people that I've been told in negotiating with people around Todd Blanch have all been really favorable towards him. Of course, the messaging that comes out on social media is the opposite of that. I'm going to play you a clip real quick from Todd Blanch, and maybe we'll break it down as far as what it looks like is going on. I have this instinct about what's happening in this clip, but I don't know it for a fact because as I listen to it, I go like, they're setting him up to sound like he's covering up Epstein information. This is the way that it's being treated. So this is the clip. And then you and I are going to maybe do a little like live breakdown of it, having just had a pretty positive experience with what we'll call Todd Blanch's DOJ. Here we go.
I know that you have the authority to go ahead and release more, do you not? And you have the authority to go to Congress, perhaps?
No, we have released everything. So listen, we reviewed 6 million pieces of paper. What we released was anything associated with the Epstein files. So there, we are not sitting on a single piece of paper. Nothing that should be released. If we find something else tomorrow, we'll release it. I don't anticipate we will. So the misguided assumption that there is more to be released is because we reviewed millions and millions of pages within the department, millions of which had nothing to do with Epstein. So it's not as if we looked at a document and said, we're not going to release that. If we didn't release it, it's because it was not responsive to the law and therefore not part of the Epstein files. What we've done with Congress is we by law, we had to make certain redactions, by law, including of victims and of PI information. But we said to Congress, any congressman can come in and spend as much time as they want looking at everything unredacted. And if you think we should be doing something, Congressman or Congresswoman, let us know and we will do it. And so we have that. I don't know how this department or this president can be more transparent than saying, American people, here's every single document in our entire database. And if we had to redact it because of victim names, anybody can come look at it if you're a member of Congress. No restrictions, unredacted.
I want to squeeze in.
What do you think of that?
I mean, there's a lot of key things in there. He goes, we released everything, but I released everything that I could. So he still has stuff, and then he goes, we're releasing it based on the law. But the law, if you've been through this ringer, you can see that they can manipulate and move the law around as much as they want and tweak it. They have a gray area on both sides to wiggle around. So I believe they still have more stuff in there. But
they definitely have more stuff. And here's how we know. JD Vance, I could actually play the clip in a second if we want. But JD Vance, who apparently said he's now interested in Pizzagate, which is very interesting to me. And I don't hate, but he's also playing to an audience of like young people at Turning Point. So I don't know how much that comes in. I think the audience actually shapes the answer. But here's the wild part.
All 10 of them.
Yeah, all 10 people that showed up the other day. We had to have a counterintelligence investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. We had to have. And we know that because of some of the things that even JD Vance is saying. But my personal experience will tell you, if you're a person of high profile and you live in a city like New York City, there's a counterintelligence investigation in you, even if it's just to protect you, which is one of the real scary things. That's the way they argue all this surveillance, by the way. They're protecting you, Joe. They're keeping you safe from the possibility that the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the Israelis, the North Koreans, whoever is trying to spy on you. So they got to spy on you first to know what you might be exploited by so they can help you. That's the claim. So I know there was at least a protective or a prophylactic sort of case against Jeffrey Epstein, and none of those things have come out. There's not a single counterintelligence CI file that's come out from the New York field office in the Epstein files, which, by the way, are not responsive if there's a national security nexus.
Yeah, they would have had an apartment across the street. They would have had an apartment across the street with a team sitting there with a camera on his windows, looking in the balcony, because
they don't even need to do that anymore. They just pull camera, man. You just put a camera up on a certain things. You can hang it up into they put it into a light socket. They put it into a street lamp. They get power right out of it and they'll run it back. It's up there for as long as they need. They don't have to change the batteries. It's PTZ, point till zoom. I've used these. I mean, we've made deals before with neighbors. You don't even have to rent the apartment. You just make a deal with the neighbor. Hey, can we place this out here? We're going to put a box on your thing. They'll tell you it's for the power company. It's going to have to draw power from your whatever. We're going to compensate you for the offset of the power bill. And then there's a little box out there with a one-way glass thing that looks like it's saying, it's a red box saying it's for fire or something. And there's a camera inside of it that's pointing right out the other end. So when you're looking through it from the FBI side of it, you can see the lettering, from the one-way glass and all that kind of stuff. And you're just pointing through and you're just looking at a window or whatever the hell you're looking at. You're looking at somebody's driveway. 100% they could do that. None of that stuff's come out. So that's bizarre. I'm just saying, but that doesn't make me hate Todd Blanch. This is the other bigger thing, because I don't think that he has a minute understanding like I do, or like you can guess. Well, why would he know that?
The other thing with him though too is, he said there's nothing wrong if you stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's island, and everybody took that as that means he's saying
party. It's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein, which technically speaking, he is probably right. I think he's probably right. It's a bad soundbite, but he's right.
But but you got to think about that. That's one of the things they do too, is like you're either part of an operation, they're using Epstein to get you with stuff like that. Then he's able to get so many people. Then now people are just scared. So all you got to do is just hang around him once, and now you're just guilty by association. So they've already got you that way now. You didn't even have to be part of any of the weird kid stuff. It's just it's already out there that he's done this, and maybe you live under a rock, and maybe you hear that this guy's some billionaire entrepreneur that finances people, and you don't know how he got his money. He's got property all over the place. He's hanging out with celebrities, and you're like, yeah, I'll meet with the guy and see if he can help me, whatever, but boom, now it's 10 years later, the files come out and you're like, a target's on you, and that can't happen. I mean, there are innocent people that just happen to be in the wrong place at the right time for the bad guy, and they snap a photo and you're screwed.
Can we have a laugh about this? There's an Instagram reel I found that is exactly what you just talked about, and it's it's this guy that he occasionally slows down his voice to do dramatic stuff. We'll just laugh about this because your topic's pretty heavy. I think let's just laugh. People apparently always need to take pictures with Jeffrey Epstein before he died.
Jeffrey Epstein? I don't know who that man is.
But I would love to get a photo with him.
I'm sorry, who's here? Jeffrey Epstein? The man with the evil island? I've heard some very bad things.
Would he take a photo with me, though?
No, sorry, I can't make it tonight. I have dinner with this
mysterious man who I've never heard of before, yet I'm giving my time to.
Jeffrey Epstein. Have you heard of him?
We will be taking a photo together.
Yes, I do run a giant tech corporation, and I take it very seriously. But if 90% of my time is not spent taking photos with Jeffrey Epstein,
then what is it all for?
I just want to make it clear, though, that I do not know no one knows who this man is. But we all need to get a photo with him for some goddamn reason. I'm sorry, what's her name?
Ghislaine Maxwell?
I don't know who that is, but her name starts with Jizz, so...
Get her in the photo op.
It's pretty strange stuff.
Gosh.
Anyway,
a lot of the stuff that comes out, people, luckily, we have a good sense of humor. There's a lot of people out there that can find comedy in some of the most bizarre, messed up ways. And that's about the only way you can make it through day to day in life. I learned, you're in prison and everything sucks. You got to find a way to laugh at stuff.
Yeah, apparently Todd Blanch went down and talked to Ghislaine Maxwell and then moved her into a low security. And meanwhile, you're like doing solitary time for walking around and taking pictures inside the Capitol.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's just a strange time to look at some of this stuff and going, how do you square that as a person that says, I want the world to have some justice? How do you square that and go, well, obviously there's justice because of these things that happened. And you've lived it. So how do you walk around and, you've said God is good and it probably feels really good to be in the situation you're in today. Walk back a week ago or 10 days ago. What was your mindset like?
I really had kind of given up on even trying anymore. Like Zach's the reason we won this. And we'll get to that here in a minute. Zach Rehl, one of my co-defendants, that dude's a pit bull, man, a viper.
Mm-hmm.
But I had given up like 5-6 months ago. I told these guys, stop calling me. Like, I don't want to hear about the case. I don't care. I was like, me, Trump's more concerned with visiting Israel and sending all of our Congress people to Israel and paying them off or taking payments from other countries and fighting other people's battles. He doesn't have time to think about giving me a pardon. So I was just getting used to the mindset that I wasn't going to get it. And so I started working on starting a business here with my girlfriend. She's got real estate that she's going to be doing. And we were just kind of just accepted the fact that I'm probably not going to get any help from this government anymore. And what I got was the most I'm going to get. And I just need to be thankful for it and, tell God, thank you for at least, using Trump to get me out and just be happy with what I have. So that's what I've been working on. I'd never thought in a million years that this was actually going to happen. And when it happened, it blew my mind. I fell to my knees. I was shocked. So, just up until yesterday, I thought there was absolutely no hope coming out of this administration whatsoever.
I mean, we need a win. I think people need a win. A lot of this is very frustrating. There's people that are doing doom and gloom, and I try not to do that. But I recognize when people are not fulfilling promises. And one of the promises that was right up front was like, you're going to make some things right for people. Why carve out a small set of them to just experience pain? I guess if you try to look in somebody told me one time when I was dealing with difficult stuff, they said you can never really see God's plan as you're going through it. You can only see it in the rearview mirror. And I imagine that probably rings true to you today. Look back and go,
so
use your pain, use your acceptance maybe of that this is not going to get any better to allow it to get better so you can feel the relief of it.
Well, when I first got picked up, they put me on home confinement. My lawyer goes, there's nowhere they're going to put you in jail. and then I get put in jail.
Right.
And then I get in jail, and they're like, "You're only going to be here for a few months. We're going to get the detention hearing back." Then the judge refused to give me a detention hearing. Then they go, "Hey, come back here into the cell for a little bit. We need to do some tests or whatever." And then they shut the door, and I didn't come out for 2 years. So I just kept getting told that something was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And it's almost like PTSD. You start to just not believe anything anybody ever says. And it got to a point where I didn't believe my lawyer anymore. I didn't believe anything was going to happen. Because every time I was told something good was going to happen, I got tenfold in the other direction. I ended up losing my house. I lost everything. The FBI literally took my clothes, my underwear. Like, why would you take that? But they cleared my house like it was ransacked and robbed. The amount of betrayal from people that I thought were friends, so all this stuff just kept happening. So, when I got commuted, I was like, yeah, I'm glad, but that's, I wasn't able to remove that burden, take that weight off and finally let go like some of these other guys could do. They were able to come home and their rights are restored. Yeah, they're having trouble getting work, but they could just release that. Like, I still felt like this whole time I've been in prison still, I'm still, this captive, to the system still because, I blinked the wrong way or whatever like that. I got pulled over a couple times for, speeding, and 10 cars are surrounding me and I'm sitting there for hours and they're coming in more and more and more. And it's because of who I am and what shows up on the computer. So, you go through all this stuff and I just didn't think that anything good could happen. And I guess that's a lack of faith on my part, but you just become so desensitized to anything good happening because it just keeps happening, so shame on me in that aspect. But, like I said, God is good. And even if I lose faith sometimes in God didn't lose faith in me and still got me out and saw me through it. So like you said, you got to look in the rearview mirror and see that, at the end of the day, it was all worth it. Should I have gone through it? No, but maybe I was one of the only people out there strong enough to go through that, to get through it, to have a story to tell one day that could help change someone's life. Who knows?
Well, and that could be it too. It's like the one thing I do see a lot of people when they go through something like this, they fall apart. I mean, they actually fall apart. They don't lose faith. They break. And so they drink themselves to death. They, start picking fights with cops randomly, go to bars, get hammered, go buy drugs, get all hopped up on something, and then go get themselves shot because they're just acting out the frustration, the pain, the confusion or whatever it is, that sort of despair. And a lot of people do that. Like, I would say almost most people. I had the same thing that people were telling me. They're like, most people, when they go up against what our federal government brings at them, they just lose their mind because it's insurmountable. What did Zach do that you think turned the tide? Because I've heard you say it, and I think I heard Enrique say it earlier, that Zach really did something, but I don't know what that something is, and maybe you do.
So, I didn't know Zach too well beforehand. We had met a few times before January 6th. I'd seen him at some events. And then that day was the first time I'd really ever spent time with him, but I still didn't even know who he was. I'm in jail going through my discovery eventually when I finally get like some pictures here and there. And I'm like, who's this guy that's with me all the time? And they're like, oh, it's Zach. So we actually got to become friends in Alexandria, the detention center where I spent most of my time in solitary. They brought him up there to that jail right before trial started. And that's where he spent the duration of trial. He was in the cell beside me. So he's the kind of guy that when he gets fixated on something, he does not give up. But he also will worry a lot. Like if he's like upset, he'll worry and focus on it and kind of spiral down until you kind of can get him back and go, all right, it's not that bad. Let's refocus. And then he gets focused again like a laser and he's on it. So here we are. We file this appeal. And when we get out and we go, okay, we're going to fight the government on this. We want to have another go at this. We want to be able to explain our innocence and this and that. Well, they just have been kicking the can down the road and nothing's happening. Well, Jeremy Bertino, the one who ratted us out, made up a story that got us thrown in jail in the first place, hits us up, through the lawyers, all that, I think, and goes on video and says that the FBI coerced him to lie, said that they had found 2 weapons. He was at his girlfriend's house. They weren't even his, he says, but I really don't care about the ins and out of that. Either way, the FBI found these weapons. He was in it as a felon, a prior felon for something. And they go, look, you've got these guns, this many guns, that means this many years. We need you to help us with this January 6th thing with Enrique, Joe Biggs, Ethan, and Zach to take him down. And at first he goes, no, there's nothing to happen. But then you can see that they start putting pressure on him. We watch the videos of their interviews and you can see them going, no, are you sure that's what happened? And he goes, oh yeah. And then he can change. Like he's going back and trying to remember what they told him, and they're coaching him, and Ballantyne's there. Nicole Miller, all these people are sitting there with the FBI, and they're knowingly conspiring to get this guy to lie, to commit perjury, and they have months to work him.
And this is during the multiple proffer sessions, basically, over the gun charges?
Yeah.
Okay, so just for people's awareness, I literally just had this conversation with Harrison Smith yesterday on InfoWars. And turning somebody like that is a lot like making a friend in sales if you're trying to sell something. I just want people to understand the mechanics of what's going on. There's two ways you can do it. One of them is you're like, hey, we have the same interest. Joe, you and I, we both love fill in the blank. We like riding motorcycles. We like shooting guns. We like, going to wild things and seeing things. We're the same. You same, me same. We have the same interest. And by the way, it'd be really cool, now that we're friends, if you would do this thing for me. Wouldn't you want to do that too? And you go like, oh yeah, I would do that. So that's one way of turning. That's the carrot version of it. The stick version of it is hey man, it's a real shame that you did this thing and you can't prove that you didn't do it. So I'm going to need your help. And I don't want you to get jammed up for this thing, because I also don't want bad things to happen for you. And in order for that to happen, I'm probably going to need you to really tell me the truth about what you did with Joe and with Enrique and with Zach and so on. And then you get this somebody that basically they end up thinking a little bit of their own idea, and they know that they're basically saving their own ass, but they're not the bad guy in the story in their mind, because their new friend has just showed them really trying to help you out here. And I want you to remember what we talked about. Like you said, giving you are you sure that's what went on? Do you want to say that in a different way that's a little bit more helpful to what I'm trying to accomplish? And when people do that kind of stuff, it's fundamentally dishonest. But isn't that?
Yes. So they told him right off the get-go that we were all going to blame him, to say he's the one that planned it. So he hears that, and then he doesn't believe it. And then
that's what they told him that you guys were sharing with him.
Yes.
Yeah,
that we were already talking to the police and saying that we were going to blame him. I never spoke to the cops ever. They never came and offered me a plea, nothing like that. They knew. I told my lawyer day one, I said, if the government comes to you, tell them to go get effed and to leave me alone. That's it. Like, I have nothing to say to these people. So, and I maintained that the entire time. I never spoke to any of those people. But they tell Jeremy that we're all going to flip on him. So he doesn't believe it at first. So then they come back with a document that was created by the CIA that we found out in trial that was somehow put into Enrique Tarrio's inbox in his email, which the FBI even said he never opened, never saw anything like that, had no knowledge of it. They insert somehow this email into his email account, and it's this document, 1776 returns, created by the CIA, and it's about a peaceful sit-in across the street from the Capitol. But since no one ever opened it, they spin it and they tell Bertino, hey, did you hear about 1776 returns? And he's like, what is that? He goes, look, it's this document right here where you guys are going to storm the Capitol and all this. So they even lie about what's in the document and then say that this had been Enrique and I's plan the entire time to do this. And he's actually the victim. We manipulated him. We used him as a pawn, tricked him to come commit this felonious act, to threaten him and his family, to have him put in prison. And so when that happened, and that's when he snapped, he goes, well, if that's the case, fuck him.
It's so simple, the mechanics of it. It's like, you're not the bad guy. They're the bad guy. They're not your friends. I'm your friend. I'm telling you the truth about what those guys were lying about. And he's got no other way to confirm or deny it. They have no access to you. So it's now just whatever I share with you. And, the alternative is also, if you don't work with us, we've got this really awful thing waiting for you on top of the thing that we're also accusing you of right now, because we did find those guns. And it's a shame that those guns were there, but you can't prove they aren't yours.
Yeah. So we get this all on camera, and he recants it and goes, yes, they tricked me. They said that you guys created this document. They said that you were speaking to the government and were going to flip on me and blame it all on me because I'm one of the newer guys, so you're going to make me take the fall. And he gets on camera and tells us that they got him to lie. So we put that out there. We go to the judge. We write this whole thing and send it in. The judge doesn't seem to care. The media doesn't pick up on it. Nothing. It's just like dead in the water.
When was that?
Probably 5-6 months ago.
Okay.
So Zach just refused to give up on it. He goes, dude, this is huge. Like, this is the guy whose story put us in jail. And now he's saying that that's all a lie, that they coerced him to do this. They had planned on him to commit perjury. The prosecution, the FBI, the CIA, all these people are involved in this big lie to get us thrown in jail. And no one seems to care. So it pisses Zach off. So he's sitting there, and instead of writing the lower courts, he starts to write the appellate court nonstop every day in DC. The appellate courts, hey, this is happening. This is happening. Why aren't you looking? And eventually someone saw it and read it. And there's something that they're scared about in that Bertino stuff that they do not want to come out. And I believe that's why, when they finally saw it, we get contacted by this new judge saying that there's merit in our case. And then the next day we're reached out to by a member of Trump's cabinet, and then our charges are dropped. There's something, I don't know, in that process that they're scared of coming out. Maybe the links they went to get Bertino to lie that we didn't see, because they did lie in trial. They said they only met with him 3 times. I believe they met with him up to 15 or 17 times, somewhere in there. Nicole Miller said she was only there for a couple of those. She was there for all of them, I believe. Jocelyn Ballantyne, the lead prosecutor, was there for a lot of that, helping to shape the narrative. The lead FBI guy that was sitting at the desk across from us at trial, he was there for a lot of that stuff. But they lied. They lied about everything. They lied about the amount of CHSs that were there. And then eventually towards the end of trial, we found out there were 50, and there's binders of people who were undercover, and every one of them refuted the government's narrative about what we did. They all showed our innocence, and they would refuse to let these people testify on our behalf because it would destroy their narrative. And, they didn't care whose lives they had to ruin.
Do you have a broader instinct of what you think happened on that day? I know you've probably thought about it for literally years at this point. Do you have a sense of who did? Because one of the things I think that folks generally do is they go, "Oh, it was this government agency, and they did all these things," and that's not, generally speaking, the way that things work, and that's not a really good siloing tactic anyway. You're not going to hide things by giving everybody the same sheet of music to play off. So, do you have an instinct of who played what role when? And maybe what you think the overall goal of that day was?
I think the overall goal of that day was abracadabra. So think about a magician. He goes, look at this hand, but there's a sleight of hand happening over here. So in this hand, stolen election, all right? But we don't want people to focus on this too long. We got to do something crazy over here. So you take your hand away off that, and then there's a sleight of hand. January 6th was the sleight of hand. They needed something to take focus off the fact that they just stole an election. They rigged these voting machines. They stacked ballots under desks. In the middle of the night, Trump's up, and by 1 a.m, the tides turn, and somehow Biden, Sleepy Joe's ahead. And you see that these places were closing down because of water main bust. They started blacking out the windows. They're bringing these extra votes out. The government doesn't want you to focus on that. They needed something else to take your focus off of that. So this real thing, the real trick over here, goes unnoticed, and we're all fighting about the sleight of hand over here. That's what January 6th was, a sleight of hand. Now we're all focused on that. We're not focused on the real trick, which was the stealing of the election. We're all focused on Trump bad, his supporters bad. Let's put them all in jail, and we've saved America. Meanwhile, the biggest purveyors of injustice and being anti-American are the people on the left, the intelligence agencies that help run this whole thing. They stole an election, and they needed something to stop it. That's why I believe the pipe bombs were initially placed, because that was going to be their go-to thing. But then they started to listen. And there's, like you said, there's not one thing that's involved. Like 9/11, there were so many things that involved the reason intelligence fell. FBI didn't want to share information with the CIA. The CIA didn't want to share information with the FBI. And there was this intel disconnect, and we lost track of people, and ultimately bad things happened. But the same thing with happened on January 6th. They had a team watching just us that day. We heard bicycle guys. We heard there were drones, all this stuff. They were following us. Meanwhile, Trump's speech is going on, and we don't even know that he's saying, go to the Capitol, fight like hell, all this stuff, whatever the speech was that he said. But then they start going, and then we notice all these people showing up. So there's all these different things that are happening that day. And it just turned out that they were like, wow, all these people are pissed. They're all coming to the Capitol. We have the Proud Boys over here. We don't even need the pipe bombs anymore. That's just icing on the cake now. We'll come back to that later, okay?
Wouldn't that be interesting if the thing that they thought was going to be the necessary diversion turns out to be sort of like now an inconvenient problem because it was discovered and some lady found it, and so now you got to have some guy go out and grab the other one, and then they stopped looking. And for whatever it's worth, you're talking about the surveillance teams on there. The interesting thing that I don't know if anybody else can tell you other than me is that my team, which did that work in that area, wasn't doing that on you guys on that day. In fact, I was actually off on that day. I got to go do a shooting course up in Frederick, Maryland. So I know that my team wasn't on a high priority potential threat, which means somebody else was doing that if they were following you. And I'm not discounting what you're saying at all, but it would mean that it was a different agency, which is what I've always believed, is that if you're going to farm this thing out, you're going to have Capitol Police, counter surveillance units guys doing something. You're going to have DC Metro PD doing something. You're going to have people from ATF. You're going to have people from, whatever, DEA. You're going to use the other assets you have, because you would never want to have the FBI be the ones that set it up, recruited all the people, put them all in there, and then do the investigations knowing that they were the assholes. Like, I just don't know enough people that are in the Bureau that are bad people that would objectively be like, we know we're the bad guys and we're doing it anyway. But you could totally get people to believe we're the good guys. Those are the bad guys. And look at all this information. Look at all the stuff we've got on them. We got to put them away. That's a very different kind of sell job than telling someone, set them up, make them look bad, and then go take them down. And by the way, never tell anybody what you did. It's just way harder to do that. That's why silos are better. I
think like I said, I think this is something that was pieced together throughout the day, and they were able to, because they are the government and because they do hold all the cards, were able to shape something up, plan something up really quickly as that day unfolded. Here we are, we look back, we know that it wasn't Dominic Pizzola that initially broke the first window. It was another guy that never got arrested somehow, but I saw him that day, and he was always in the police officers' faces cussing and pushing them, but nothing ever happened to him. He broke the initial window with a 2x4. And then Dominic, all he did was move the glass because people were going to try and crawl through. I'm just going to clear it out.
He's going to do they call it break, and then they break
it. But that's not. He didn't initially break it. Like, once something's broken, because they had the architect of the Capitol, come into our trial, and he goes, "Look, once something gets broken that first time, that whole window is considered broken." And I go, "You just exonerated Dominic, because we know, you can see in the video that it's this other guy that does it, and he's at all these different pivotal points." You saw, before protesters or whatever you want to call them showed up the building, there were guys running around inside the building already putting on MAGA gear. These guys are in DC, they got that stuff. Had all these guys with earpieces in, setting up suitcases and duffel bags around the Capitol with bricks and things like that, and 2x4s and stuff like that. I'm like, this is a little too convenient to just, there was nobody marching, because they're all coming from Trump's speech. They were in an area that had already been looked at, from what I heard, by Secret Service to an extent. So now where do they get all this stuff? And it's
What's
just showing up.
With the brick story too, and I saw this when I was in DC, maybe September of 2020. We came back from Portland. I think that's the timeline. It's a little fuzzy for me now, but it was in July. It was in July when they drove Trump into the bunker, and people lit fires at St. John's Church and all that. Yep. As a guy that was on surveillance previously and then got dragged in to be like front lines wearing FBI body armor, standing out there to try to hold back the crowd while Secret Service got their people out of the hospital. There were piles of bricks. And they didn't belong there. They were right on the corner of the North Lawn. Like somebody had piled up bricks illogically. They'd set them all up, and then they covered them up with granola bars and bags of snacks. And I go, "What is this?" I literally walked up. I watched the lady coming and putting snacks on it. I go, "What are you doing?" And they go, "Oh, we're just we're just giving food to the protesters." I was like, "Get that shit out of here. Like, you can't leave that on the ground here and cover up these bricks. And by the way, guys, we've got a pile of bricks here. What the hell's going on?" So all these weird things were happening during that time. And so everyone kind of looks at it like there was a vacuum. But there were all these crazy stories, pallets of bricks and building materials and stuff that was let up.
If Ferguson duffel bags would show up, I'd see an SUV, a blacked out SUV show up in front of one of those like bus parking benches, where they sit and wait on the bus, and duffel bags are getting thrown under there, and there's literally Molotov cocktails in there ready to go.
And the craziest thing,
bags of bricks.
I saw this in Portland. It was like we'd see a vehicle pull up. It was usually a van. It was usually like some ugly garbage van, white van or something like that. And it would pull up and it would offload like 100 shields that some, jerks had built. And they would go to a bunch of people. They'd take 5 or 6. They'd throw it in the back of their Toyota Camry or whatever it was. And then they go drive off to some corner and then start handing those things out. So they had a centralized distro. We saw it with our own eyes. We were doing surveillance early in the day and we'd watch them pull up. And so, who funded that? We're hearing that Kash Patel's going to go after that now because Savannah Hernandez got beat up. Your eye roll is exactly how I feel about it as well. I just think that they're doing kind of like low-hanging fruit reaction. It's theater, but not real. But somebody clearly had some organized idea, and I think you might be right. We call it a hasty ops plan. You're familiar with that term? Yeah. It's like we got a bunch of pieces in place. We have all these assets. These are all our possibilities of what we could use. We don't know how it's going to shake out. So as things go, it's like, okay, put A, B, and C together, or put D, E, F together, or maybe we just need A, B, and D. And we throw those suckers.
You have enough highly trained people in an area like that, in a theater, an operation, a theater like that. You're going to be able to make the best out of a broken situation because you have enough trained people who understand how to take what little they've got, quickly turn it around and execute something that is pretty easy. And, I do believe that there were operators there that day, special forces types. I believe that, even contractors to an extent, there were a lot of strange things that day, guys walking around highly trained with their earpieces in. I could hear them talking to each other, maneuvering, getting people in place, telling people how to break down barriers, things like that most of these people never understand how to do. And they were just like that. It's like the angel thing that you see. You got the good guy and the bad guy. They were the little bad guy on the shoulder whispering into the ear, this is how you do it. Just make that push, just a little bit, go over there, go over here. But they spin it that we're the ones who did it. They said we walked around the Capitol and we found our spot. So if I'm this, the government may be out to be like the General Patton of our time. Literally, like they said, this guy is a genius military tactician. And I'm like, okay, let's just take that. Let's just say that I'm General Patton. All right. So why did I walk around the Capitol and not pick a spot where there were no police? Because the Capitol hardly had any protection with like actual armed police or anything like that. It was just wide open with just like a little bike rail around it. Why did I pick the one spot that had 3 cops? That makes no sense. Second, why did I tell all my guys on video, live on YouTube, not to bring weapons, and not to dress up in like all this gaudy body armor? That's kind of stupid.
Why indeed, Joe? Yeah, maybe that's because they would have expected that. You're definitely
So then they spin it because I didn't need weapons or a trained army or anything because I have like this telekinetic power. They said that I was able to use my mind instantaneously and shoot a message to all the protesters there that we were going to break down the barrier and stop the certification of the election. They said that that's what my mind said, because they have to have those exact words said for them to get the conviction. So I didn't even know that I thought that, but apparently they were able to use their spy technology to know that I thought that. And then a fist bump happened, and with the shockwave, with the force of Thor and Hulk hitting each other, it sent out the message to everybody, and they all nodded in agreement that they were all going to collectively stop the certification of the election that day.
Yeah, it was like unleashing Captain Planet.
You think that I'm giving you a BS story, but everybody listen right now, I'm dead serious. Like I had to sit in trial and listen to the judge and the prosecutors tell me this, and it was hard not to laugh because I laughed. They got mad at me. They said, sir, this is serious. And I go, apparently it's not serious because you're telling me that I've got like Marvel superhuman powers, and I wish I did, because that would be cool. If that's true, I wouldn't have been here. I would have known you guys were going to do this that day, and I would have stayed the hell home. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, they just, it's mind-blowing.
Is there all right? So let's go to what's coming next. Like, what do we expect? Maybe tell me what you think in the next couple days, or, coming hours, and then what do you think long term you guys are working on?
So a lot of us are working on. We've already been filming documentaries. I had a documentary come out in France, working on books, things like that. A collective book between the 5 of us about that day, and it's going to be almost kind of like written like a Game of Thrones, where each chapter will go to one of us and like hear our story of where we're at that day, a thing like that.
Just like Game of Thrones, it'll have like some really, really dark stuff that happens to everybody too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all the people you like have really shitty things happen to them.
Yeah, no crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's going to happen. A lot of that stuff's already in the process. But we're waiting on this official to be done. We're being told that it's pretty much a slam dunk. All the lawyers say so. The lower courts are not going to go against what they say up there. It's just kind of a formality. But they say it's a done deal. We are in a civil suit with the government, suing them for $200 billion, and this only strengthens our case now. Have you
had any settlement talks with the government? Have they had any interest in sitting down with you guys to talk about whether you would settle on the $200 million case?
Yes, we've had some very good talks. Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So you characterize them as very good people. We can talk offline about those two. I don't want to give too much away, but you're feeling decent. Like they're coming to you in good faith in that case.
Yeah, I mean they've actually, through that process with the civil case, they've actually been very cooperative, generous, very open about like what they're expecting, and there's been nothing really shady, not like what we've seen with this criminal stuff where they've just fought back no matter what, knowing they're wrong. And here it is, 5 years later, we're just now finally starting to see a little light. So once that happens, we get everything restored. Once this is official, it's like nothing ever happened. It's like I just have to go the rest of my life, that I had a horrible nightmare, and that's what I'm going to try to think about it as. I really, and it sucks. It's 5 years of my life I'll never get back. But out of all that horribleness that happened, a lot of good stuff did happen. I learned a lot about myself. I grew. I learned that I had more self-control than I thought I did. I didn't know that I could. I was always afraid of being in a room by myself. I remember when I first got thrown in jail, I was like, man, whatever you do, don't put me in a room by myself. Like, I don't think I can deal with it. And I actually found peace there. And God showed me joy in a hole, and I came out of it happy. And that blew my mind, So I found out that I can endure a lot of hell and still keep my mind about myself and still keep my head on my shoulders and still think clearly. So does it suck that it happened? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I've gotten stronger. I know myself more. And I know that going forward in life, whatever is thrown at me, I can conquer it. And,
they took 5 years. Is there a way that because I'm just looking from the outside in, it doesn't look like they can balance the ledger. The ledger from what was taken, that they can never come back. But
no, I mean, they're never going to be able to pay me. I'll never get paid what I should actually be owed. I will get back pay from my time in the Army, like what I lost when they stopped that payment. Mm-hmm. I will get that back now. I wouldn't have with a pardon. So that's all guaranteed. And once it's vacated, and it's official, that's $10,000 a day for wrongful incarceration. That's 4 years. So you can do the math on that. That's a nice chunk of change. And that's something they really can't, fight you on. And then I have the civil case where that can go up and down, and there'll be negotiations and settle, whatever. But at the end of the day, I'll come out of it better than I was before. Is it worth it?
Yeah,
yes, no.
I don't know that you can ever say it's worth it, but will you be able to have peace if this works as we think?
Once this is over, like yesterday, I think I fell to the ground because it felt like that weight finally came off my shoulders. It was like this symbolic thing, it's like my knees gave out and I just hit the ground, and I think that was just God saying, look, I got it, man. Like, I've always had it, but you just had to hold on a little bit longer, and I knew you could do it. So at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it was another test for me to go through, another test of my will, and it's funny because my nickname in the club is the Hated One. And when you look at the literal translation of the name Job, that means the Hated One. And what happened to Job? Job lost everything and held on and kept his faith, and then God paid him back tenfold. So, I kind of feel like I've gone through a lot of that shared story with him. I think he actually got it way worse, but be a better man, and I will become wiser from this. I know more than I did before. I didn't know that I had a love for reading books, and now I read nonstop. I love to read, and I've read over 1,000 books just in the last few years, and not like comic books, like actual thick 1,000-something page books.
You're taking my joke away from me. I was going to set up. Well done. Yeah. Well done. Good play.
Yeah. So, I learned a lot, and I'm glad that it was me that had to go through it, because like you said, most people would explode. They wouldn't be able to deal with it. They would go crazy. I heard guys in there bashing their heads in the wall trying to kill themselves just after a week of being in solitary. And, I made it through 2 years of that. So, sometimes we just have to endure, and it's for the better of, other people. We can all learn something from it now. And now we've all got an insider's look at what that's like, getting put through the ringer by our own government that we're told every day we're brainwashed is the greatest government in the world, and we have the greatest justice department, and it's not true, and I can testify to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are hip to that. I think J6 may have been a wake-up call for a lot of folks that thought maybe got to watch experientially, or got to watch people that look just like them have a really raw deal, and plenty of people had a lot of injustice done. Rough. I call it the American Rorschach test, because anybody who thinks it was just one thing, I think those people are a little bit simple-minded. It was obviously a lot going on, but how you look at that event tells me a lot about how you look at a lot of things going on. I've got your Twitter handle. You're back on X. How many times have you been kicked off X since you came back?
Oh my gosh. I think this is 6.
Yeah. Can you stop getting kicked off, please? It's really hard to keep track of all your handles. You want to tell people what the new one is?
It's the hated one, at the hated 101. And it'll say Josephus Bigglesworth. It's a picture of me in Afghanistan with the background, actually the shirt that I'm wearing now.
Yeah, I saw that. That was convenient. Well done on that. Yeah. Folks, I'll put this link in the show description so you guys can follow Joe if you want to see what he's up to. Hopefully it's going to be good news here on out, and be able to keep track of what you're up to. You got your company. What is the company you said you guys were launching?
Oh, so I'm starting to just around here a power washing company. I just wanted to find something that I could kind of do, with the record I had. Washing. It's fun, actually. I actually enjoy doing it.
It's really satisfying.
You go out there and you don't even notice that your driveway is that dirty, and then you run this machine over it, and you see how clean it gets, and it's just it's euphoric. You go, whoa, this is so cool. And all the neighbors are coming out like, whoa, how'd you do that? And it's it's really neat. It feels good. It's kind of cool.
I'm glad you said that, because I thought my dad and I are the only people I know. My dad would like spray messages in with a spray, he would put an arrow in for my mom to park the car where he wanted to, because it's really satisfying as a man to be able to leave something just sparkling clean.
Yeah.
It's
that was weird. I never thought it'd be something I liked, and we got this thing, and I just started doing it. I was like, man, I feel good. I'm out there wearing my Ranger panties. I got flip-flops on. I'm out here getting a tan. I'm out here just dancing around. I got the music going. I got Metallica blasting, having fun.
Just ripping dirt out of concrete.
Yeah, dude. I started getting all these new nozzles. There's a super nozzle that can literally rip your toe off. It's so powerful. That thing's pulling up chunks of concrete out of the road. I'm like, holy crap.
I love it. That makes me feel good, because
I'm doing the Tim Allen grunt. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, more power. I feel like I was the only one. Thanks for not making me feel alone in that, Joe. All right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you calling in. It sounded like did you have a late night, like you said?
Yeah. We stayed up. Yeah.
I'll give the audience a little cue in. Joe called me yesterday, and he was like, "Hey, it's Joe. I think I'm gonna be free. I think everything's gonna be good. Call me back, whatever." And he leaves me this really low key voice message. So we get on there. I go, "You want to come on the show?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I go, "Okay. Well, we go live at 09:30 Eastern time." And he was like, "In the morning?" I go, "Yeah, dude, in the morning." So his response was, "Ooh. I'll make it work. It's a little bit early." I was like, "How about 10 o'clock? You can come in the middle of the show." And he goes, "Yeah, that'll be better. Then I can get some coffee going." So anyway, I'm glad if you tied one on, I'm glad you're up. You sounded coherent, and appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah. I had 5 hours of sleep. That's all you need. I was good.
It could have been way worse for sure.
Yeah, it could have definitely been way worse. But the tequila was good to me, and we had to celebrate. We watched movies, played Scrabble, and you lose track of time when you're happy. So
that's a pretty chill grown-up celebration. So good on you for that. When you get your super yacht or whatever it is, and you land on the helicopter and maybe do an interview from the boat on your on your
my idea of a super yacht is a new motorcycle. I am addicted to motorcycles. I love motorcycles. Currently mine is in the shop, which breaks my heart. There's overcharging the battery. That's another story. So I'm borrowing my friend's Harley, and I'm like, okay, this thing's awesome. And I started looking at motorcycles yesterday, fantasizing about the new one I'll get, and maybe a new gun.
Yeah, if you maxed out money on a motorcycle, it still wouldn't be that much money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be able to pay for this pretty easily.
Yeah.
So that's now that I can shoot a gun again, I get to go hunting. So I want to find me like a new hunting rifle. I got to celebrate all these things I haven't been able to do in a long time. Maybe I'll buy like 3 guns. I need a pistol.
Yeah, maybe you get 3 different guns. Let me
a
know if
pistol,
you need some
shotgun, and a
recommendations.
rifle.
Hell yeah. Well, you can come shoot with me anytime. If you come out to Texas at all, if you're out in Austin, we'll go up to the range and I'll get you a guest day and we'll go shoot some steel. I got some good stuff. I'll put a GoPro on you and you can or you can wear your little what do you got? You got those Oakley?
Yeah, I got the Oakley Metas. I love them.
You're out there giving free information to the government wherever you're going.
Screw it. This is the way I look at it, though. This is the way I look at it. Whatever case agents work at me, I'm going to give him PTSD. I find myself doing weird things in front of the camera. I hope he goes home at night and like is crying when he hugs his wife. Like, baby, how was your day? He's like, it was Biggs. I had Biggs today. And he just kept spreading his butt cheeks in front of his Oakley Meta glasses.
I'm glad you said it. Listen, you said it. I felt it. That resonates with me. I don't know who that poor guy is, but yeah, hopefully you're traumatizing them. I hope they stop spying on you. All right, homie. Hit me up soon and let me know as this progresses and come back anytime you want to give us an update. That's good news. I appreciate you sharing this with us.
No problem, buddy, man. See you later.
All right, y'all. Have a great one. Joe Biggs. Guys, you can follow him. I will put up the... Here, let me see if I can resize the screen real quick. This is the handle. There it is. There we go. It is Josephus Bigglesworth. He's trying to avoid a social media ban, and you can find him at the hated one, all spelled out, all English words, 01. The hated one, 01, retired Army. And there you go. That's the backstory. I'm very interested in how this all plays out. As you guys know, we're still interested in what goes on with the J6 story, which I don't think is over. There's still one person that's now dealing with a pipe bomb allegation that I think is false, and I think that it also has the potential of unraveling a lot more information. Joe indicated there's some CIA involvement, that there may be some FBI. I think there's ATF. I think United States Capitol Police were all some layer of it, and how much the government wants to let you know. They moved a lot of goalposts in real time for us, so it'll be interesting to see where it all ends up. But it's nice to see Joe smiling and having talked to him when he was just sentenced and now today. It's been a wild journey. It's good to know that it didn't turn his beard white, that it was always white. Should have known that probably. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for following us. We really appreciate you. Should we do a palate cleanse of some kind? I feel like that'd be all right. One of the stories that's been going on this week has been whether or not Donald Trump thought he was a doctor. I think that's kind of dumb. Apparently someone decided to cut a medical ad for the product of Donald Trump, Dr. Trump, who does healings. And you probably didn't know that was available. So for some of you who have long-term and critical ailments, here's Dr. Trump. He's in the business of helping people who can't be helped other ways.
Are you suffering from a serious life-threatening illness? Has your doctor told you you're probably going to die? My name is Dr. Donald Trump, and I have helped millions of patients with conditions just like yours. Cancer, heart disease, ALS, you name it. Conditions your doctor said were untreatable. I've seen them all, and I fixed them all. I use an advanced technique that the cheating medical establishment don't want you to know about. The results are, frankly, incredible. Nobody gets results like this. They're the greatest results.
They gave me 6 weeks to live, but then I called the hotline and was healed entirely through the phone.
I was clinically brain dead, and my wife was about to pull the plug when the doctor saved my life.
If you or someone you love is suffering, don't wait. Don't let the corrupt medical establishment tell you what's possible. Call 1-900-NOT-JESUS today. Let's make your health great again.
That's pretty uplifting. I felt like that fit the theme of today's show. We should be talking about people in Congress having scandals and getting kicked out, but instead people are discussing with the Speaker of the House whether or not your president was portraying himself as Jesus. So there you go. Was it 1-800 or 1-900? 1-900 not Jesus. Don't call that number Or if you do, record it and then send me an email with the recording because I'd love to know what they say. God bless all of you guys. I really appreciated you joining us for the program. I hope you enjoyed the story from Joe Biggs, and I hope you see us again tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or the next day or it'll be Monday, but we're going to have Stuart Rhodes come on and give his angle of this story. Then since he also received sort of a blessing. I've seen Stuart fairly recently, and he's a pretty chill guy bearing the same kind of burden that Joe was. So look forward to what that looks like, and we'll see you on the other end. Support the sponsors, support the show, share it, subscribe. God bless you. See you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.